active duty C-130 pilot who had allegedly picked up the body of a dead giant out of Bagram Airfield. As he's getting up close to this thing, he realizes that it's a person. The body weighed exactly 1,100 pounds. The abduction phenomenon is real. It's physical. The Greys come get you and take you on their vessel, and you are gone. You're physically missing. But you are on their vessel, being incorporated involuntarily into their breeding program.
Breeding program.
Missing fetus syndrome. Those of us who are well-versed in alien abduction know it's not missing, it's just taken. I have encountered different people in government and military, always asking them about UFOs and crash retrievals and alien bodies. And these people are very candid with me. As soon as you start to question about the Kandahar giant or the topic of giants in general, these guys freeze.
Why do you think people are afraid to talk about it?
Because it implicates the occult. These are the offspring of the Canaanite Nephilim. Security camera footage from the History Museum in Baghdad. And the footage depicted U.S. military personnel entering the museum and removing gigantic sarcophagi from the museum. Bodies of dead giants. The Bible tells us about everything. Wrong. The Bible tells us about some things. Jesus of Nazareth. This is the maker of the universe. Okay? He could have said, let me tell you something about this thing called electricity. He talked to us like we were freaking toddlers and tried to tell us about the kingdom and his Father. If that's what the Son of God did in the flesh, why do we expect the Bible to tell us about any of these things?
Hey, before you get going, we have Timothy Alberino back, one of our favorites. Be careful with this episode. We push the boundaries of what we've explored in the past. We talk about interdimensionality, a little bit of aliens, presuppositionalism, and there's a good streak of theology routed through the middle. But keep in mind that Timothy is a researcher and one of the probably more experienced guests that we've had in terms of what's going on in the world right now in areas that are frequently covered up and they lack proper discourse and they lack accountability. So we're going to just go through a really fun conversation that ties in at the very end, but I would probably counsel there's some sensitive topics that we discuss, especially once we get into alien abductions, things like that. So just be careful with this one. If you're watching with kids or anything else, you can use the table of contents at the bottom. But stick with us. It's one of my really favorite guests that we've had in conversations, and we talk about C.S. Lewis at the end. And so if you want to talk about Chronicles of Narnia and Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, this is going to be right up your alley. We love you guys. Enjoy the show.
Everyone wants to get to the high places, but if you want to go high, you first have to go deep.
What's up? Welcome back to the Deep End. How are you?
Great, man.
It's the first episode of 2026, right?
Yeah. It is the first episode.
The first real episode,
right?
I think.
Yeah. It's not like we sometimes spend 9 hours filming for an episode that we wanted to release and then we didn't get to release it. That's always fun.
People have no idea.
Not hinting at anything.
They have no idea how the bar has gone up and up. Thanks for being here, Tim Alberino.
Happy to be back with you guys.
You're the man.
I'm a man.
You are a man. Let me tell the audience who you are for a second. I've got a question for you. Timothy is known as the modern day Indiana Jones, not a
Crocodile Dundee.
You want to switch the branding? All right.
Let's update this.
The modern day Crocodile Dundee.
More appropriate.
His inquisitive mind and insatiable appetite for adventure has led him all over the planet in search of lost cities, lost civilizations, hidden treasures, legendary creatures. You're also an avid researcher and published author. You have a lot of different scholarly pursuits that have taken you on expeditions all across the world. After years of rigorous study, you've garnered an expansive knowledge base that has enabled you to dissertate with authority on a wide variety of esoteric topics, including theories on alternative history, ancient mythologies, megalithic architectures, giants, Bigfoot, other cryptids, UFOs, alien abductions, transhumanism, and emerging technologies, occult conspiracy, and Christian eschatology. There's a lot of different topics that you've blended in together. That takes you.
It's an eclectic.
Yeah, it takes you all over
academic pursuit.
You live in the most beautiful city probably that I've experienced recently, Bozeman, Montana. We were able to come out, hang with you.
That was a lot of fun.
Step outside and look at God's creation. I was like, man, we need a farm out here quickly. And you can fly direct from Montana to Nashville, which is God's greatest gift.
Well, I've never been able to avail myself of that gift, but
Seriously.
We were the only ones that be able to get the direct flight so
No
far to
way.
Bozeman. Yeah.
No
I've never
way.
been able to take the direct flight, not one time. Yeah, it's never worked out.
How is this possible?
I love, as everyone knows, I love airports and airplanes. So I take advantage of staying in an airport as long as I can.
Yeah, Allegiant.
Of course, I'm kidding.
Allegiant has a direct flight to Nashville and back. I don't
Not when I'm flying. Apparently,
I see. You have 5 kids. How long have you been married?
20 years.
20 years.
Wow.
Congrats.
Yeah.
5 boys.
Yep.
Wow. Some testosterone in the house.
Yeah.
Very
A
nice.
lot of testosterone. My wife is outnumbered big time.
Yeah. That's okay.
And I got a male dog now. So
Oh my gosh. Making it worse. Here's my question. We'll start up with this, and we're gonna go into just, I think, some fascinating topics, and I want to hear all about what you're studying. But how does a kid grow up and then become Crocodile Dundee? When was that decision made, bro?
Well, I grew up in a very boring part of America. I grew up in Brook Park, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cleveland. I had a very good upbringing, though. Very good parents. Both of my parents passed away. My mom died when I was 14. My dad died in 2020. But they were phenomenal parents. Grew up in a Christian home. My dad was a pastor.
Mhm.
So I had a very good, solid upbringing. But unfortunately for me, growing up, I was just so bored. And I wanted adventure really bad. So I would ride my bike all over the place and get into the woods and make forts and dream about, when I was young, I wanted to go to Africa. And that was my big desire, was to go to Africa. And then as I got older, it pivoted to Ireland and Scotland and Ireland, primarily because of the Braveheart movie and also because
course.
does anyone remember the movie Rob Roy?
Uh-uh.
I don't know if I was born yet.
That was such a good movie. Rob
Was
Rob
it before
Roy.
2001?
No, seriously, Rob Roy was a great movie. It was with Liam Neeson. I think it's Rob Roy. And I watched Rob Roy growing up, teenager, and it's just, I have some Irish heritage. I'm mostly Italian, like Italian, Scot-Irish. And so it just resonated with me when I was growing up. This I'm going somewhere with this. So when I was growing up, I would listen to Celtic music. That was my thing. That was I've since migrated to Viking music. by the
Celtic
way.
women. Celtic women.
No, not
on
so much
repeat.
Celtic women, but Celtic music, bagpipes, and Celtic violin, and
Did you start wearing the little, what do they call it? The little thing that this little skirt for men?
the skirt for men. Yeah, the kilt.
Kilt.
And so when I was in my late teens, my desire was to go to Scotland and Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in high school, which, I always say that there's not a word in the English language to express how much I disliked school, especially high school. I'm serious. I can say I hated it. I can say I loathed it, but none of those words really capture
Abhorred it.
my distaste for high school. And it was like prison. I know I would have rather been incarcerated. So I just hated it for a multiplicity of reasons. So when I was in my senior year, so here I am, bored out of my brains, living in Brook Park. I was going to high school in a mid park high, and that building has since been leveled and it's gone. But so I really wanted to go to Scotland and Ireland, and I really hated high school. But I wasn't a bad student. I mean, I wasn't let me reframe that. I wasn't a disruptive student. Okay, so I just did my own thing. I basically just sat there and read the Bible and the Lord of the Rings. And I had a no homework policy. This didn't go over well with my father, but I had a no homework policy. So the teachers would pass out the homework, but I hated school so much that I refused to take it home. I was like, nope, I just got to spend like 7 hours here a day. When I go home, I'm not taking any of this with me. When I go home, that's my time. I'm
How
done.
did you pass?
Well, I'll get to that in a minute. So they would hand out the homework, and I would literally just write my name on it and pass it back in. And I remember my English teacher called me up one time. She said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm quite sure." Like I'm going to pass by the skin of my teeth, just so that I don't get a beating.
Oh my god.
So, but that's it. Like I'm done. And but I wasn't disruptive. Maybe I was disruptive in Spanish class, but outside, I really wasn't disruptive. I got kicked out of Spanish class. But that's a funny story. I guess I should tell that one. So I signed up for conversational Italian in high school. I don't remember which grade I was in. And I was interested in learning Italian because I'm Italian. I'm Italian American. And you had to take your language. And so I started off the year, I think it was my sophomore year or something. And it turns out that not enough people signed up for the class, so they automatically slotted the people who were going to learn Italian into Spanish. And I had no desire to learn Spanish.
Oh, no.
I had negative desire to learn Spanish. And I got put into the Spanish class. Wonderful teacher. The best teacher, one of the best teachers I've ever had was my Spanish teacher in high school. Her name was, it's one of the only teachers who I remember her name.
Uh-huh.
Her name was Mrs. Santa Maria. And just a wonderful teacher. But I wasn't a wonderful Spanish student. And everyone chose these. This is actually very ironic. Everybody chose names. Everyone had to take a Spanish name. And so you had like Eduardo and Alberto and whatever, Juan. I chose Don Quixote.
Oh my gosh.
Now, do you know the story of Don Quixote?
Dude.
Don Quixote, the story of Don Quixote, he was, looking for giants. Chasing windmills, thinking they were giants, right?
Oh my word!
So, anyway, I chose Don Quixote just because because it was a humorous name, and eventually, I just didn't like Spanish. I didn't want to learn it, and that was the one class maybe I was disruptive in, just having fun because I liked the teacher a lot. She was a lot of fun, but she came up to me at the end of class one day, and she goes, "How come you don't put any effort into this? Like, you can learn Spanish. I think you do really well. You just don't take it seriously. You don't put any effort into it." And I said, "Mrs. Santa Maria, no offense, but I'm never going to use this stupid language in my life. I'm never going to use Spanish."
Now you do.
So here I am, Don Quixote, never going to use Spanish, right? And she said, "Well, I think it's better than that we put you in a different class." So I got, I say kicked out. That's too aggressive of a term.
You got transferred.
I got transferred out of Spanish into study hall, which I was really good at because all I did was read books that I wanted to read.
Read Lord of the Rings.
So I thought I was never going to use Spanish. Boy, was I wrong. So I ended up learning Spanish, obviously, but in Peru. So how did I get to Peru? My senior year of high school, I'll give you one more illustration of how I wasn't disruptive, but I was doing my own thing. So we would have half an hour, I think, for lunch. That wasn't enough time. If you had to my dad didn't make a lot of money, so I had the school lunch program, and I had to stand in line with my tray to wait to get food. And by the time you got your food, you went through the line, you sat down at the table, you had like 10 minutes left. And a lot of times the bell would ring and I wasn't done eating. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to do 40 minutes for lunch. So I would just sit there
My gosh.
and eat lunch, and I'd be the only guy sitting there. And the principal would the principal would walk by. He was an Italian guy too, an Italian American, Mr. Ruggiero, and he'd look over at me and be like, "Mr. Alberino, what are you doing?" And I would look up at him and I would say, "Oh, I'm finishing my lunch." And he would go, "Okay." And he'd walk away. So then I would walk into my next class, which was science class, and I'd just walk in the back, and the teacher would be talking, he'd be teaching, and he'd look up at me. Kind of like a puzzled look on his face. And he'd be like, "Oh, well, whatever." And he'd keep teaching, and I'd sit down. And so I passed because I did just good enough to pass. Because my dad would threaten me with summer school, and that's all I needed. Like, I am not doing school in the summer.
School, yeah.
So I barely passed, and kids, don't be like Timothy Alberino. It's not a good idea to do what I did, but it's just illustrating how much I just did not like school, and because it wasn't teaching me anything I was interested in.
Yeah, you were bored.
I'm autodidactic. If you give me something that I'm interested in, I'll devour it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't interested in any of this. I mean, there was a couple of things, but for the most part, I wasn't interested in any of that. And so ultimately, in my senior year, in the first couple weeks of my senior year, they screwed my schedule up. I had 2 English classes, same class back to back, and nobody was fixing it. I'm like, I'm in the same class twice, literally back to back. And so they sent me to the counselor to try and work out the schedule. But the counselor wasn't as interested in working out the schedule as she was in arguing with me about my faith. Yeah, it's bizarre. So she actually would get into these yelling arguments with me about various aspects of Christianity and whatever. It was bizarre.
Was you bringing it up, or was she just?
No, she would bring it up, and I think it's because I would read my Bible in class a lot of times, and that triggered her, and it was the strangest thing, sitting there having your counselor losing it, yelling at you because she's atheistic or whatever. And I was just fed up with the whole situation. So I told my dad, this lady's just yelling at me, trying to get into arguments with me about theology and Christianity. I said, this is a joke. I don't want to go anymore. I'm done with this. I don't want to go. And my dad would never have considered letting me drop out to homeschool if it weren't for my stepmom and my stepsisters convinced my dad, like, no, this isn't good for him. You should just cut him loose and let him go do his thing. He'll finish school and get his diploma, but let him do his own thing. And it was a miracle, but they convinced my dad. It was really miraculous. And so my dad pulled me out. And I should say that I always say that I dropped out / got kicked out of high school because my counselor told me, one of the first things this lady told me, she didn't like me. Like immediately there was confrontation between us. And I'm not a confrontational person. I was very respectful. I was raised very well. I was very respectful to adults, to my elders. But she wanted to be combative with me. And where was I going with this?
You're very respectful. Your dad pulled you out.
I totally lost my thought.
Counselor didn't like you. She was combative.
Oh, and she told me, one of the first things she told me was, nobody likes you. Can you imagine this? Coming from a counselor, mind you. Nobody likes you. I'm like, what? Your teachers don't like you. My teachers don't like me. Yeah, they don't like you. I'm like, why don't my teachers like me? Apart from the fact that I just turned my homework back in. I get that. But I'm not a disruptive student. And she just said, they don't like you. And they don't want you in their class. And it really was her. She didn't like me.
Yeah. And
so she's trying to diminish me and embarrass me. And again, a counselor. And she was saying, they don't want you in their class. And so we're going to have to figure something out for you. And so I was kind of getting pushed out. And this was all providential, by the way. I'm getting pushed out. And basically, she left me no choice. And my dad realized that. When he met her, he realized that there was really no choice for me. And so he decided to pull me out because I was being pushed out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm liberated from Hades, and I'm thinking, oh, this is great. Now I get to go on my adventure, right? So, by the way, my dad put me into a homeschool program. I literally did one sheet of notes for my. I shouldn't be saying. I feel like I'm being a bad influence on any young person that's listening to this. I did one sheet of notes, and that's it. And they sent me a diploma. But for my whole senior year.
Wow.
My whole senior, I didn't even think, I thought, well, I'm not going to get a diploma. They sent it to me. So
It must have been a really good sheet of notes.
yeah, it must have been like, well, I don't even know if I turned it in. I can't even remember. But I did one sheet of notes. That's it. And then I spent the rest of my time working and raising money to go to Scotland and Ireland.
Like real life skills, though.
Yeah, well, I was just working and saving up enough money to get the heck out of Brook Park. And so myself and my best friend, Carlos, who's older than me, now that I was liberated, I raised money. And when I say raised, I saved money, and we planned this epic trip to Scotland and Ireland. But we didn't have enough money to fly directly to Scotland. So we flew to Gatwick, England. And this is like the fulfillment of a dream, right? And there were some other things that led up to this, which I'm not going to trouble you with those details. There's some other very important things that led up to this moment. But finally, I'm going on this epic trip. It was going to be 3 months. We were going to hike the Inverness Trail, which just opened up from Inverness, Scotland, to the Highland Way, and then hike the Highland Way down, cross the channel, and stay with a friend in Ireland. Sounds crazy, but we had done stuff like this. You know, we would go camping in the woods on Christmas night, and it would be like negative 25 degrees. You know, stuff like that. We're doing stuff like that all the time. Allegedly, we burned 30 acres of forest on that trip. But I don't believe it. But the forest ranger came all the way from New York to my house. That's a whole nother story.
Not very disruptive in school, but elsewhere.
Yeah, we burned.
No idea.
Allegedly, we burned 30 acres of state park forest. It was weird though. I don't think we did it, but it was. That's a whole bizarre situation. Threatened to put me in jail. So fast forward. We're used to doing outrageous things, and we get to Gatwick, London. Get to Gatwick Airport. Get off the plane. We've got some camping gear on us and not a whole lot of money. We never really needed a whole lot of money to do whatever we wanted to do. Like we could rough it. And we got flagged by immigrations when we were coming through. They flagged us and they put us into this holding room. And it was just me and Carlos and a bunch of Indians and Pakistanis. And we were there for hours. And finally, they called us in individually to interview us, to interrogate us. And it was an immigrations officer. I don't know her name, but I can still, her voice will forever haunt me. And she sat me down after Carlos. She brought me in, she sat me down, and she said, what are you doing in my country? What are you doing here? And I said, well, here's our plan. We're going to take a train to Scotland, to Inverness, and we're going to hike the Inverness Trail to the Highland Way. And she goes, whoa. Hike? What's hike? And I kind of looked at her sideways, like, what do you mean what's hike? Like, you know what hike is? She's like, no, I don't know what that is. What is hike? What do you do when you hike? I'm sitting there trying to explain to this lady what hiking is, and I know she's being facetious. And she goes, no, we don't do that here. She said, where are you going to stay when you hike? Where are you going to sleep? I said, well, we're going to camp. She goes, camp? What's camp? And then I started laughing, to myself, like, come on, you know what camping is? And she leans in and she looks at me with her British accent. She says, young man, it's not a good idea to laugh at the immigrations officer. I said, well, I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing at the notion that you don't know what camping is, because I know you do. And she said, maybe you Yanks do that where you're from, but we don't do that here. I'm like, Yanks? Wow. I've never been called a Yank before. I kind of wear it as a badge of honor. And I knew at that moment, oh, she's deporting me. I knew it. I'm like, okay, she's going to deport me. And I was not being, me or Carlos, we're very respectful. We're not punks.
Yeah.
I'll reiterate, I was raised very well. Good manners. This is my elder. This is an official, being very, very respectful. Mm. But she obviously didn't want, she was a feminist, didn't want two young male American Yanks coming into her country. And she didn't think we had enough money. What her accusation was, we were going to come and work. We were looking for work, which doesn't really make any sense. So she deported us the next day. Now you have to understand, this is my dream. I'm finally free. My dream is within grasp, man. I'm about to get on a train and head up to Inverness. And before I did that, I was going to go to the I think it was called the pub, the Eagle and the Child, where C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien and the Inklings used to meet, right? So I'm like there, but now I can't leave the airport. And I'm getting deported the next day.
Oof.
I can't even describe to you the depression that settled in on me. It was just awful. In fact, I remember boarding the plane to go home the next day. All I remember is sitting down in the chair, and I was so depressed that it was like everything else is a blank. I can't remember anything else. It was psychologically very traumatizing. So, but it was providential because I got deported. I'm back home, back in Brook Park, and I'm like, I can't escape. I mean, I got out of high school, but I can't get out of here. It was a very difficult situation for me, very difficult time in my life. But it just so happened that I think it was the following week, the following Sunday. It was within the time, certainly, that I was going to be in Ireland. Very shortly after I got home, that there was a Mexican-American missionary to Peru preaching at my dad's church.
Wow.
And his name was Alfonso Felix. And my stepmom, who had been to Peru and knew Alfonso, she said, Tim, I know your dream was to go to Scotland and Ireland, but I think you should go to Peru. I had no desire to go to Peru. I had zero desire to go to Peru. None. And I'll tell you a very strange thing as a sort of a insert here. This, it's going to sound a little morbid, but I don't mean it to be a sad story. My mom died when I was 14, and she died of cancer, and she was on hospice in our living room. And I remember there was one particular evening where me and my twin brother and my older brother and my dad were in the kitchen, and my dad was telling me and my twin brother, you guys need to go say goodbye to your mom because she could die, and she's on hospice. And I'm like, say goodbye to my mom? How do you go say goodbye to your mom? It's 14-year-old. And I'm trying to process this. Like, what am I supposed to say? That's like the most difficult thing you can imagine as a 14-year-old. Go say goodbye to your mom. And so I might have been 13 and then turned 4. She died when I was 14. And so my dad was like, no, you have to go do this now. And my older brother was like, you got to go do this now. Okay. So I go in the living room, and my mom's sitting on the couch. I sit next to her. She's watching TV. And I swear to you, this is what came out of me. I said, I don't know where it came from. I said, Mom, I'm going to go to Peru.
When you were 13?
When I said the words, and in my mind, I said, what? What am I saying? I'm going to go to Peru. I didn't want to go to Peru. I want to go to Africa and then Ireland. And like, Peru? Like, what am I saying? I didn't know where it came from.
Did you think back to this when the missionary was in town?
Ultimately, yeah. And then I said, I'm going to be a missionary to Peru. Because that's the way I could conceptualize it.
That was your worldview. Yeah.
And she looked at me and she said, oh, that's good.
Interesting.
And that was it. I got up and went back in the kitchen, and my dad's like, did you say goodbye? And I was like, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say Mom, goodbye. I'm not going to do that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I said. Now, I didn't know why I said it. I was baffled. I didn't care about Peru. I literally was baffled. Like, where did that come from? So you can see this very bizarre sequence of events, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't want to learn Spanish, told my teacher I'd never use this stupid language. I told my mom I was going to go to Peru, and I got deported from England on my way to Ireland and Scotland and Ireland. And now suddenly the only door, the Scotland Ireland door slammed in my face. This is how God operates in my life. I don't get the subtle, like, I don't get like the subtle indications.
Yeah.
I have to have the door slammed on my face.
Yep.
And then I'm like, oh, okay, this isn't the right direction.
Yep.
So that door slammed in my face. And then this other door opens up over here that I didn't even care about. It's Peru. And so I met Alfonso, and Alfonso preached at my dad's church. And before he was going to take me to Peru, he wanted to go for a walk with me and kind of figure out who I was. Mm-hmm. And I remember walking with Alfonso. We were just walking. He's just asking me about myself, and we were talking. And at the end of that walk, he told my dad, "Okay, I'll take him to Peru." So I literally went back with him.
Dang.
To Tarapoto, Peru.
That was the first time you went to
first
Peru.
time. Went back with him.
How old were you?
I must have been 17.
Okay.
At this point.
Is this, and that's not when you
or
lived in the,
maybe 18. I think I was 17 or 18.
this isn't when you lived in the Amazon.
No.
This is before.
Well, he was living in the jungle city of Tarapoto, which is in the Amazon basin. It's in the high jungle, the Andean Amazon is what it's called. And I went back to Tarapoto with him. And again, never wanted to go to Peru, even though I told my mom I was going to go to Peru. Mm-hmm. And we land in Peru. I remember flying in on the airplane, looking at the Amazon jungle as we're flying in. We land, and it's at that time, Tarapoto was very primitive. We get off the airplane. We get on these things called motor cars, which they're very popular in South America and Asia. They're like the three-wheeled motorized cart things. And as soon as I get on that motor car and we start driving through the city, it was the most liberating feeling I've ever had in my entire life. Like, wow. I'm out. Like, I felt more at home in this foreign third world country than I ever did in America, in Brook Park, Ohio. I felt like I'm free.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd walk through the market and they'd be selling all manner of animals, monkeys, and even like jaguars and condors and all kind parrots. And it's just this was my first experience buying food in an open market instead of in a grocery store. I was built for this kind of thing. And I adapted immediately, and I just fell in love with the Amazon. And I stayed with Alfonso for a month. And by the time I went home, I hatched this plan. I was like, okay, the Peru door's open. So I know what I'm going to do. And I hatched this plan. And the plan was I'm going to work for a couple months. I'm going to make as much money as I can, save as much money as I can. I'm going to go to Peru. I'm going to buy a two-way ticket, a return ticket, but I'm not coming back on that return ticket. And I knew that my dad would be very nervous if he knew I weren't coming home. So I bought a return ticket.
Oh man.
And I said, I'm going to start in the Amazon, and then I'm just going. And I don't care where I go. I'm going. It doesn't matter. And ultimately, I wanted to go down the Amazon and like literally down the Amazon River to Brazil and then make my way over to Africa somehow. This was the ridiculous plan I hashed in my. It wasn't very well thought out. I can guarantee. I didn't care though. I was just going. And I should say, this is a very important piece of the puzzle here. I was driven to. I had one motivating desire above all. I wanted to have a burning bush encounter with God. That really was at the heart of this whole thing. I wasn't rebellious. People probably get the wrong impression here. I wasn't rebellious. I wasn't reckless in the sense that I didn't have a direction. I just wanted to either know God, like burning bush encounter, or die in the pursuit. But I wasn't nihilistic, and I wasn't suicidal.
Yeah.
I was just consumed with this quest. It became a quest. That's how I thought of it. I'm gonna encounter God on this level or die in the pursuit, and I'm totally fine with that. Like, this is the adventure that I'm going on. Period. And I was fearless at this time. I had no encumbrances. So, but my dad didn't know this. So my plan was, here's the door that's open, so I'm starting in the Amazon. And I had $400 in my pocket by the time I got to Peru.
Is that a lot in Peru, or is that
Well,
just
at
like
that
a
time,
little bit?
$400 was, like
More
4,000, or actually it's probably like $10,000.
Yeah. This is like what, 2005?
I
2010?
I was 18 by the time I did this, and I'm 42 now, so you can do the math. So I didn't even have enough money to fly from Cleveland, Ohio to Peru. I had to fly out of Miami because Miami at that time was a $500 ticket to Lima, Peru. So I took a Greyhound to Miami. Which is a whole experience in itself.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you want to see the underbelly of America, take a Greyhound bus. So I can remember vividly my dad and my twin brother driving me to the Greyhound bus station. And it was such a surreal experience because they think I'm just going back to Peru I had a return ticket. It was a 3-month trip. So they knew I was going to be gone for a while. They thought I was just going to be hanging out with Alfonso, and then I'm coming back after 3 months. And I'm knowing in my head, nope, I'm not coming back. Like I thought I wasn't going to see my family for 10 years. I dealt with that reality. I was ready. And or maybe I would never come back at all, not because I hated my family, but because who knows where I'm headed. And so I've got my military rucksack. I wasn't in the military, but I had a military rucksack, and that's it. Just that bag, and they're dropping me off at the Greyhound station. I'm 18 years old, and you know what's wild is I have a 20-year-old, and when he was 18, I remember just thinking like, now I'm the dad. What if it was him doing this?
Yeah.
And I felt a lot of pity for my dad.
I bet.
No, what if it was I was dropping my 18-year-old son off at the Greyhound station, and he's going to some third world country for 3 months.
You don't even know that he's not coming back.
And I don't even know that this. I have a lot of sympathy for my dad now. And sorry, Dad. And so they dropped me off at the bus station. I remember looking at my dad and my twin brother, thinking, like, "You guys think I'm coming back? I'm not coming back." And it was a very emotional experience for me. I wasn't crying or anything, but it was a very deeply emotional experience. Like this is I'm really doing this. I'm going for it. And so I took the Greyhound to Miami, ended up in Tarapoto ultimately with Alfonso, and I decided I'm going to stay in Tarapoto for as long as it takes for me to learn the culture and learn Spanish. That was my goal, which I did. I rented a house on the outskirts of town that Alfonso used to rent. Alfonso was kind of my guide. Alfonso's, by the way, was a phenomenal pastor. Awesome guy. I love Alfonso. And just a wonderful guy. Him and his wife, and his wife's name was Carmen. She was Peruvian. And he just kind of taught me the ropes of living in a third world country, and it was just wonderful. He would take me to the jungle. He would go preach in the jungle, deep in the jungle, and take me with him. And that's how I learned Spanish. That's how I learned the ropes of living in a third world country. And so the funny thing is, Alfonso, he used to rent this house on the outskirts of town, very primitive dwelling. There was no indoor plumbing. He's like, "You should rent this house." I used to live there. The funny thing is, the landlord's name was Hitler.
No way.
Ancillary detail. His name was Hitler.
Oh my gosh.
So I rented a house from Hitler.
That's
in
great.
Tarapoto on the outskirts of town. And back then, I mean, the dollar went far.
Yeah.
In especially if you were like me, I was primitive. I could adapt. Like I was very, very wild. I had long hair, eventually dreadlocks, but I wasn't a hippie. I was the opposite of I was the antithesis of a hippie. And I was just wild. I was just feral. Like I was free. And I went down to the market. One of the first things I did when I got to Peru was I bought some monkeys. That was my inclination. I want to live with some monkeys. So I went down to the market. I bought some monkeys. I had 3 monkeys, different species. I had a spider monkey, which was the most intelligent. Then I had my spider monkey's name was Mytha, Mytha. I just invented the name. And then I bought a squirrel monkey who I named Don Quixote. And then I had a tamarine monkey. He was too dumb to give a name to. He was like a squirrel, so I didn't name him. And so I had, and again, I'm probably giving you guys too much information. I don't know if anybody's even going to be interested in this podcast, but
find out the answer.
But I had a room in this house, the house I was renting from Hitler. People are going to be like, no way, this story's
It's like
real.
last time when you had Mike Tyson.
Yeah,
when
yeah,
Mike
exactly.
Tyson was one of your buddies
Right.
in the jungle.
So this house I'm renting from Hitler. It had a bedroom and an indoor window with bars on it because it was probably the exterior at some point. And I'm looking at this one day and I'm like, I'll put some monkeys in there. So I went and got some monkeys, and I was standing there in the market. And again, it's not like this anymore in Peru. They really clamped down on that, which is good, on the trafficking of exotic animals. But I'm standing there. I almost made the dumbest decision. I almost bought a jaguar and a condor.
Dude.
I almost did.
Why?
And I'm like, and it was a baby jaguar and a baby condor. And I'm like, what am I going to do
They get bigger.
when they get big? And if this jaguar, when it's an adult and it eats the neighbor's kid, like, nah, that's not a good idea. So I bought some monkeys instead.
And did you just feed them and talk to them, or was
Yes,
there any?
I fed them and talked to
They
them.
were like dogs. They're like dogs for you. Like,
And I had a big mango tree in my backyard, and I would just hang out in the mango tree, read, study, and hang out with the monkeys. And my neighbors, I loved these neighbors I had in Peru. To this day, I go there and they recognize me, and I talk to them. And in Tarapoto, on the outskirts of Tarapoto, and my neighbors would send their kids over so that I could teach them English. They wanted me to teach your kids some English, just to hang out with me and learn some English. And in exchange, they told me, you come over our house to eat lunch and dinner.
nice.
I was like, okay.
Good deal.
It's a great
All right.
deal.
So the kids would come over. I'd be hanging out in my tree with the monkeys, and we'd do some English, and this helped me learn Spanish. And then I'd go over their parents' house for lunch, one of their house, and the other parents for dinner. And it was amazing. I love these people, the Peruvian people. They're amazing. And these are very, poor people, but they're not poor in the sense that they're not like American poor, homeless, and no, these are just very humble jungle people. And so, and I adapted to everything, the Peruvian food, everything, the culture. I just absorbed it. And, and then ultimately, skipping over a bunch of details, ultimately I went on my journey, and I ended up deep in the Amazon.
This was for the burning bush experience.
Yeah. So, which I've never told publicly.
Are you going to? Do you want to tell it publicly?
I did actually. Last year I went up the River Masan. I had lived in the jungle. I lived in various parts of the jungle in Peru, around Tarapoto, and then up around Iquitos, and then I was in the Andes. I lived with a family up the River Masan, which is a tributary to the Napo, which pours into the Amazon. So basically right on the Amazon, that jungle adjacent to the Amazon there, the Amazon River. I went way up the River Masan, and there's nothing up there. The last village was called, I always get it wrong in my head. I want to call it Gamitana, but I'm not sure it's Gamitana. I think it has a different name. But anyway, one of the villages is called Gamitana, and I always get it confused. But it was the last village. There was a homestead or two up the river, but this was like the last village. And I ended up there. I don't even remember how I got there. I can't even recall how I got there the first time, but I ended up getting really close with this family. That's the family. That's Mike Tyson. And Grover.
This is a reference to our last episode where you had friends.
And Gina, and the father, who I don't even know his real name. Everybody called him Paisano. That guy was a character. He loved to drink tequila and fish, and so I basically became a member of this family, and I learned a lot living with this family, and I would occasionally visit them, and over the years, and I went back. Mike Cernovich was doing a documentary. He's doing 2 documentaries which are coming out this year. And one is on a UFO phenomenon, which I'm featured in. And the other one is one I'm really excited about. It's called Meaning. And in meaning, he features a lot of high profile people. Tucker Carlson's in it. I'm trying to think of the other people who are in it. Scott Adams. I don't know if you guys know who Scott Adams is, who's unfortunately passing away right now. And Mike, who's a friend of mine, wanted me to take him and his crew up the river to this family that I lived with and sort of feature my story. And what they really wanted to do was they wanted to coax this story out of me that I've never told publicly. And I told them, like, there's a fat chance that's going to happen. I'll take you up the river, but I'm probably not going to tell you this story. It's too personal. It's too bizarre. I don't feel like it's.
This is your burning bush story?
Yeah, never thought, I don't really care to have that out there. And so we went up the river, my son, and the family wasn't there anymore. It was a really fun trip. We rented a riverboat, the same one I used to go do the face peeler expedition. It was just a blast. We all had a great time. And it occurred to me as I'm on the river, my son, I think it was the 22nd year anniversary of me fulfilling that quest up that river. And I'm sitting there thinking, this can't be coincidental. I didn't plan it like that. It just occurred to me as I'm sitting on the riverboat, on the river, my son, like, whoa, this is literally to the day, 22 years.
What a coincidence.
And I thought, this can't be a coincidence. Okay, let's do it. Turn the cameras on. I'm going to tell this story.
No way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, I don't know
It'll make it.
how that's going to, it'll make it. I don't know how it's going to come across. It may make me look like a raving lunatic. I doubt it. Mike, I trust Mike. I totally trust Mike Cernovich with this. So I don't know, but I did tell my story there on the river, my son, where it happened.
What a moment.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
And I thought, I'm 40. At the time, I was 41. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do it. So it's just, I never thought it was profitable for anybody. Never cared to do it. Very personal thing that happened to me. And I've told just a part of it at my conference in Costa Rica. And that's in my members community for anybody who wants to watch that. That's available there. But I never told the full extent of that experience. You know what? I never wanted to be one of those guys that's known for an experience that they had some sort of crazy encounter. I didn't want to be that guy. Everywhere. I want people. I want to be the guy that can do good research and investigations and just report things that I think are true. And I don't want to be that guy that's had this wild, prophetic experience or something. I never wanted to be that guy. So
I respect that about you, for the record.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it just I don't. That's why I've always been very guarded about that story.
By the way, it's alberinoanalysis.com. Right?
Yeah, the alberinoanalysis.com is my.
Are you in there yet?
In the actual community? No, not yet.
Man, we go deep into stuff in that. Seriously, and I'm not just doing this to promote my community. Like I'll be going through some content in that community, thinking, man, this is like stuff that a lot of people would benefit from. And the reason why I can do it there is because I'm unfiltered over there, and there's no trolls. So it's like I can be much more. I'm sort of unshackled, and I can talk about things that are way too controversial to talk about on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I recommend it. So I mean, I can consume information like a trash compactor, and
that's
some of your series. I'm like, I'll be walking around the airport, and I'm like, I can't process this right now. There's too much. I have to sit down for a second. Yeah, it's really good.
I've got some crazy people in the community too, like crazy good, like just military guys that have seen some stuff. Politicians. Yeah.
So did that story ever come out somewhere with Mike?
It's coming.
It's
a little bit nervous about it. I'm a little bit nervous about it.
Okay.
We should just tell it here to get ahead of it.
Well, I can't do it. It would take me way too long. It's too convoluted.
This is not the experience that you talked about last time when it was about the revelation about Adam and the river.
No, that was the sort of preamble.
Got it.
Yeah, you got close, but then
That was
it
the
was
preamble.
like,
That was the preamble.
Nice.
I gotta take a break real fast, but that was the best intro I've ever heard on any podcast. I don't care what anybody thinks. We got monkeys. One of them was too dumb to have a name.
In the house
He got eaten by a
or
dog,
something?
demonstrating
Eaten by a dog?
demonstrating the
Oh my god!
justification of not giving him a name because he was too dumb.
We're not changing that intro at all. It's the best intro I've ever heard for a podcast.
He didn't get eaten by a dog. His lung got punctured by a dog. And I was holding him in my hands, and he died.
Seriously?
What?
Yeah. He was just a tamarine. Leoncito, they call
Oh
him.
my gosh.
All right, time out. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. You good?
I'm doing great, man.
All
That's fun.
I kind of want to go into. Well, I want to go to a lot. So you just tell me when we run out of time or we get off limits. But eventually, I want to make our way to UFOs.
Okay.
But I don't want to start there yet. I want to pave our way there
Okay.
with super soldiers, genetic engineering, giants. Is that okay? Like, are you?
I'll
when we go into
wherever you want to take me.
So you have a quote from your book, "Modern Man is a Mutant."
Which book is it?
Birthright, which everyone should buy and read. If you haven't read Birthright, you have another one now in the Book of Enoch.
Yeah, I wrote commentary in the
Enoch 1.
introduction to the Book of Enoch. Yeah,
Which it's just Enoch 1, right?
First Enoch. Yeah.
First Enoch. Okay. This is from Birthright. Modern man is a mutant, but the idea here is that the human species is basically experiencing genetic
Degeneration.
debilitation. We're going backwards,
We're devolving.
and then you have an interesting perspective on genetic engineering, super soldiers. You kind of tie it to the golden race, the age of Apollo.
Yeah.
I don't know where your favorite. I was reading this morning about the World War II incidents around cannibalistic giants and
Solomon Islands.
stories of giants that are around today. Is there any unique, interesting research that you can
Well, yeah,
share?
the famous Kandahar giant story.
What is that?
So in 2000, okay, let me back up. I used to work with a guy named Steve Quayle,
Okay.
one of the old school researchers, authors who was investigating the topic of biblical giants. Steve and I created a production company called Gen 6 Productions, and we were making a film series called the True Legends documentary film series. And in the course of this endeavor, in the course of this enterprise, Steve was contacted by this elderly woman who told him that he needs to talk to her son because her son has a very important story to tell. And she had been listening to Steve for a long time, and she was encouraging her son to talk to Steve. And so she connected them. It turns out that her son was an active duty C-130 pilot who had allegedly picked up the body of a dead giant out of Bagram Airfield in his C-130, the government C-130 that he flew. And so we decided to fly him into Bozeman and to interview him for our film in the series. So when he came to Bozeman, Steve and I had the opportunity to spend some time with him, and he was willing to be interviewed, but he wanted to be interviewed in silhouette, so we didn't show his face, and he didn't want us to reveal his name.
Mm-hmm.
So he showed us his credentials, and he was active duty C-130, and he struck me as a very genuine, honest guy. He didn't want money, he didn't want notoriety. His mom convinced him to tell us this story, to tell Steve this story, and then he agreed to be featured in our film. So I had the opportunity to interview him, and he told us that in 2005, he flew a mission into Bagram Airfield. Now, this was not uncommon. He was flying routinely into Bagram Airfield to pick up what he described as high-value assets, which were usually like high-level Taliban guys. And so many of the missions he flew were classified. he thought this was a routine mission. In 2005, on this particular occasion, he lands on the tarmac, and he realized this was not a routine mission because he was met on the tarmac by who he believes were Air Force intelligence or Army intelligence. He didn't know, but he referred to them as the babysitters. And he gets off the plane with his loadmaster, and these intelligence officers told him, highly classified, this never happened. And they escort him, which he had never been met on the tarmac by anyone before like that. They escort him over to the hangar where the cargo that he's got to load is sitting. And as he's getting close to this cargo, the first thing he's struck with is this pungent odor. He said it was very, very strong. It was this musky odor. It was a combination of BO and death. And it was very powerful. And he realized there's something dead under a tarp on this crate, on this pallet. And as he's getting up close to this thing, he realizes that it's a person. And this is a air cargo pallet. So it's 9 feet long.
Yeah.
And the guy that's on this pallet, he's covered by a tarp. He's in the fetal position, but his hands and his feet and his head are hanging off the pallet. This is a 9 foot long pallet. So he immediately recognizes that this is a gigantic person. He's got to be 10 to 12 feet tall, more like 12 feet tall. And he walks up to the cargo, and there's a group of, he thinks they were Marines standing around, kind of guarding it, and the babysitters, the intelligence guys. And he said that this giant was, again, so large that he was in the fetal position, but part of his body's hanging out. Most of his body's covered by a tarp, but you could see the head, so he saw the hair, which was red. The hair was red. He saw the hands and the feet, which had 6 fingers and 6 toes. And the feet were wrapped in a crude, like canvas, primitive footwear. And the skin of the giant was white, almost like
pale
white. But he thinks that might be because it was dead, had been dead for a couple of days. And he said he would pound this thing with his fist, under the tarp. And he said it was a brick. It was solid. You could tell it was just muscular. He said, now, rigor mortis, it was dead, but he said you could just tell, just even by the parts of the body that were sticking out under the tarp, this dude was jacked. And the guys standing around the body told him that they had heard that a team of guys, probably special forces at this point, 2005, I don't think we had yet committed a lot of troops to Afghanistan at this point. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember. I think this was early on. Could be wrong about that. But he said there was a team of guys that went on a reconnaissance mission. This is what the soldiers told him, guarding the body. And they were out in Afghanistan, the Kandahar region, and they came upon a cave. And there was a village in proximity to the cave, and the villagers were depositing various items at the mouth of this cave, food items and other things. And so they assumed that these villagers were aiding and abetting the Taliban who were hiding in the cave. And so they went into the cave, this team of guys. And instead of finding the Taliban, they were confronted with this very large, hostile giant who killed them all. And so another team was dispatched to go and find this missing team. And they followed the tracks and went to where the last transmissions were from this team. And he said that the story goes that when they went into the cave, the giant was eating on the guys that it slaughtered. And they were able to take him down. Now there's another story told by my colleague L.A. Marsuli where he had a whistleblower come to him about this incident, which we're not sure if it's the same incident or a different incident, where the giant speared one of these guys from the second team. Might be a separate story, but not 100% sure. But they killed the giant, and then they airlifted him out by helicopter to Bagram Airfield. And this is where our pilot picks up the story, and he's there to load the body. And so they had to weigh the cargo to put it on the airplane. And the loadmaster weighed it at 1,500 pounds, subtracting the pallet, the air cargo pallet. They knew that the body weighed exactly 1,100 pounds, or approximately, I should say, 1,100 pounds. But they knew that was the weight because that was the weight that was being loaded onto the C-130. 1,100 pounds. So 12 foot tall, 1,100 pounds.
Monster.
And 6 fingers, 6 toes. And then the pilot, after they loaded the cargo, he had to take it to Qatar and unload it in Qatar. And then he told me he heard through the grapevine that the giant, the dead giant, ultimately made its way to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Now, he didn't know for sure, but that's what he heard. So we featured that story in our documentary, and Steve interviewed him on Coast to Coast AM, and then that story just exploded on the internet and has since become sort of mythological. But I've confirmed the validity of that story a few different times with different military personnel. One guy, very high-ranking Air Force guy, who told me that he could confirm that story, and then told me an additional story that was even crazier, which I don't have the liberty to tell to protect this guy. But it's been confirmed to me a few different times. And as I've said many times on podcasts, I have encountered different people in government and military who I have always asking them about UFOs and crash retrievals and alien bodies. And these people are very candid with me. You know, they say things to you in a setting where you're sitting there smoking a cigar, drinking an old fashioned, that they wouldn't say in any other kind of setting, right?
Yeah.
And they'll tell you things and freely. But as soon as you start to question about the Kandahar giant or the topic of giants in general, these guys freeze. Like, they'll talk about aliens, but if you want to talk about giants, that's a whole nother level of trouble, let's say. And I have a friend who I told this story to, and I was actually at Lou Elizondo's bar in Wyoming, and I'm sitting there with a friend and who I met there. And I told him this story. And, you know, he thought, I don't know if I believe that. And I don't want to give any of the details away, but he went and was with a, let me be careful. Let me be ambiguous here. He was with a staffer of a senator who's a friend of his. And this staffer had spent time in the military, in pretty high level. And in the course of their conversation, he said to this guy, "Hey, do you know anything about, I was just with Timothy Alberino, and he told me about this Kandahar giant story. And like, you know anything about that?" Just throwing it out there, right? And he and the staffer have a great relationship, and very jovial guy and casual. And he said as soon as he said that, the guy went dead serious on him and looked at him and said, "Hey, what are you getting yourself into? Please be careful."
Wow.
Be careful. This is, you know, in no uncertain terms, he told him, be careful with this topic. This is dangerous. And he was shocked that he got that kind of reaction, because he's never had that reaction from his buddy. And that was enough confirmation to him that this story is real. And I've had much more direct confirmations than just be careful.
Yeah.
You know, I've had guys tell me stories that are even, like I said, even wilder than the one I just told you. So then the Kandahar giant, because it's not a giant.
Giants.
It's giants. I've even had somebody show me on a map. where these giants are. So,
real quick before you go into that, do you think these giants survived, or is it genetic engineering?
I assume these are the offspring of the Canaanite Nephilim, or a different offshoot
Breed, yeah.
from the generally speaking, from the Mesopotamian Nephilim, and they've survived, and they're living they're very primitive, they're feral, they're hostile, and they're very dangerous, and they are evil. Because, how do I derive all this from a dead giant? I don't. I derive this from other stories that I'm not allowed to tell. So they're evil. They're very evil. And when you bring this topic up, man, I'll just say this. I was at a conference, and there was a gentleman there who I got to be really careful. There was a gentleman there who was in Afghanistan, high-level guy. And, we talked about some things, and he and I were talking, really, really amazing dude, really amazing guy, strong believer. And he's walking away, and I knew he was in Afghanistan during this period of time. So I said, hey, let me ask you a quick question. He's kind of walking away from me. He's like, yeah, sure. Said, you were in Afghanistan around 2005. What do you know about the Kandahar giant? The blood rushed out of his face. And he went, and he pointed to his phone like, nope, I can't, nope. And he just he was shocked.
What year was this that you asked him about that?
A couple of years ago. And his wife was standing next to me. She pulled down my shirt and she whispered in my ear, he can't talk about that.
Wow.
Well, I got to stop there. I don't want to get this guy in trouble. But let's just say I have talked to guys who have direct knowledge, not secondhand, direct.
Yeah, they were there.
So, and they didn't hear it from a guy who heard it from a guy. They encountered these beings.
Yeah.
So, and it's the one thing I was just with Michael Knowles talking about this, and I told Michael, this is the one topic that I talk about, especially on a show as big as Michael Knowles. This is the one topic that I talk about that makes me nervous, makes me never want to get on a private jet. Let's put it that way. And because it seems that the topic of giants is more highly classified than anything else. And I assume let's say I hypothesize that the reason why that's the case apparently is because it is so intricately entwined, let's say, with the occult. There are, I believe, occult practitioners who are practicing necromancy and who are attempting to use the remains of giants to summon the spirits of the giants, which we know are the demons. Mm-hmm. And you can contact them, and they're still in the world. And I think that they still have some sort of a connection to their remains. And if you can get the remains of the giants, you can summon their spirits. Necromancy. Mm-hmm. It's necromancy. Mm-hmm. And this is the origin of necromancy. It's Canaanitish necromancy, which I believe practitioners of the occult, high-level practitioners of the occult, are engaging in this kind of necromancy. And, we're talking about the top of the pyramid when it comes to the occult. And so, again, I always kind of have a lump in my throat when I talk about the Kandahar giant publicly. It's the cat's out of the bag now. I mean, like putting it in a documentary about giants, whatever. But talking about this thing on a show like your guys' show that gets millions of views, and then a show like going on the Daily Wire, talking about the Kandahar giant. That's a whole nother level.
Well, it's not just in the Middle East, because the Solomon Islands are in the Pacific.
The Solomon Islands, yeah. I think there's living giants in the Solomon Islands. Same thing. They live in the caves. They're underground. And some parts of the world, the giants are venerated.
What does that mean?
They're worshipped.
Yeah.
Other parts of the world, they're hated and hunted.
Did you see anything in Peru that like looks like giant involvement or no?
Peru has there are a lot of, I think we've talked about this before. There are a lot of incidences that are recorded, historical incidences, where the conquistadors encounter the bones of giants. And they're clearly, and at least in some of the cases, clearly giant humanoids, not dinosaurs, not giant sloths, not mammoths. And the natives have legends of giants. Red-haired giants that came from over the sea on reed boats. That's interesting because the Phoenicians made reed boats, among other kinds of boats, but they used reed boats. And the Phoenicians have red hair. That's a Phoenician trademark, which is why if you go to Italy today, if you go to Sardinia, you'll see Italians with red hair. Where does that come from? Phoenicians. So, in fact, they did a genetic test on the Sardinians, the Italians who live on the island of Sardinia, and they found that they have very prominent Phoenician genetic trademarks, hence the red hair.
Interesting.
So, I believe that the giants were dispersed around the world through the Phoenicians, who had contact with different continents, contrary to the prevailing view of isolationism. I believe that the Phoenicians were crossing the oceans, and that among the Phoenicians were giants. The Phoenicians had a cult of giant worship, and at which they exported all around the world. So, I do believe, as I said, there's living giants today. They're feral, they're dangerous, and they're highly classified.
With that, there's scriptural backing for that, obviously, in multiple places, including like in Genesis 6, and then you see the land of Canaan is ridden with giants all over the place, which is obviously terrifying. But the question that keeps popping up in my mind, and I know we haven't really gotten to, probably in other episodes it'd probably make more sense. Like, we didn't really get to like why you're so fascinated with some of these things now, but what do you see as the actual significance and ramifications of this being true that people are afraid of people knowing? What does that mean for everybody else? Why do you think people are afraid to talk about it? Because of the ramifications?
Because it implicates the occult, and it's classified at that level. So it's there's something about this topic that strikes fear into these people. Again, they'll freely tell me about crash retrievals, alien bodies, not a big deal. Giants, nothing. They don't want to say nothing. I mean, certain individuals have, but most of the guys, they don't want to say anything about giants. And again, the only thing that I can surmise is that this is so highly classified, and that people have gotten into big trouble talking about it, and they must have been warned. And again, it is, as I said before, it's interlaced with the occult at the highest levels. Nothing else makes sense. Nothing else makes sense. Like, big deal, there were giants. People say that, the prevailing idea out there among Christians is they're hiding giants because it proves the Bible. Well, it proves all the mythologies of the ancient peoples, right? Everybody's got mythologies of giants.
Yep.
The Native Americans.
Yep.
The Mesopotamians. Obviously the Canaanites, the ancient Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans. Everybody's got legends of giants. The Norse. It doesn't specifically validate the biblical text. It does, but not only the biblical text. So that's a weak argument. That's not why they're hiding this. And then other people say, well, it invalidates the theory of evolution by natural selection. Nah, not really. All they have to do is say, oh, this was just a different branch of evolution. Done.
Offshoot, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't invalidate the theory of evolution either. It's something else. Again, all I can surmise is it's the occult. And I dare I say we're talking Podesta level occultism. So, Clinton level occultism, if I may be so bold.
Oh boy,
really bold.
Here we go.
Well, I'm surprised that there could be a side of reverse engineering genetic enhancement.
I think that's a part of the equation. I do. I think that there's some genetic. I know Steve Quayle believes that there's a program, a super soldier program, where they're actively looking for these remains of the giants or the living giants, and they're using their DNA in some kind of black budget project.
Would we be surprised though?
No, but this is what Hitler was doing as well. Like, not specifically with giants, but
they're trying to breed the master race.
Yes.
Are you guys familiar with Tom Horn, the late Tom Horn?
Yeah.
So Tom was a friend of mine, and Steve and I did a lot of work with Tom in our films, and Tom told us a story, and he said it publicly, and we featured it in one of our films, this story. He said that he was given, and Tom died recently in the last couple of years. 2023. Tom was an amazing guy and a phenomenal writer, great researcher. And Tom said that somebody contacted him from the military, and they shared some video files with him. And they told him, this is highly classified, be careful with this material. And it was footage, like security camera footage. I believe it was like security camera footage from the museum, the History Museum in Baghdad. And the footage depicted U.S. military personnel entering the museum, going into the back rooms, and removing gigantic sarcophagi from the museum. And Tom was told what they're removing in this footage are the bodies of dead giants that were hidden away in the repository of the museum. And the footage showed them carrying these large sarcophagi, these U.S. military personnel, and loading them onto the transport helicopter. And Tom was told in no uncertain terms, this is one of the major reasons why we went into Baghdad, was to secure the bodies of these giants, which we knew were in the museum. And he's told that story publicly. He told it in our film. He said it on interviews. And shortly after receiving that footage, he downloaded it to his computer. Shortly after that, he was with his wife in his kitchen with Nita, and they were just talking, and suddenly they heard crackling in the walls, like firecrackers going off in the walls, and his house went up in flames, burned to the ground.
What?
Everything he had was lost. And Tom had, and the one thing he really lamented, he had a remarkable library of ancient texts and all kinds of books, and he was very proud of his library, and he lost everything. His house burned to the ground, including that computer and the files, the video, the footage of this incident. So again, this is highly classified stuff. I know it to be true, and I'm out here talking about it, and I'm not doing it for clicks, I can assure you. I'm doing it because I think the topic is important, and I'm the enemy of the occult, of these occult practitioners. And so that's why I talk about these things, and I firmly believe that somebody's interested in the bodies of giants, specifically for a super soldier or something equivalent to a super soldier program, but also the occult aspect of it.
Yeah.
If you can use the bodies of giants to contact their disembodied vagabond spirits, the demons, then maybe you can learn something through these beings. They're very ancient.
You can finish what the Watchers started.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's a very good insight. You can glean knowledge, and you can perhaps harness this power, this demonic power for something. And so you combine those two things, super soldier programs with the occult, and you can understand why this thing would be very, very highly classified. Vatican's involved as well. So, and I don't say that glibly. I say that because of my experience.
You said the Vatican's involved.
Yeah, I say that based on my investigations on the island of Sardinia and my interviews with individuals who told me that the Vatican there were certain priests who were working to extirpate the evidence of giants in Sardinia and collect some of the remains. Not just the Vatican, but also some academics from the capital city of Cagliari back in I believe it was in the early 80s when that was happening. So there's a lot to be said about the reality of giants. And again, we're not talking about NBA players here. We're talking about giants that are 9 to 15 foot tall. That's sort of the range when you look at the firsthand testimony. It's not anecdotal in Sardinia. These are people who dug up the bodies themselves with their own hands. Okay? You're 9 to 12 to 15 feet tall. Here in the United States, the legends of the Native Americans, you're 9 to 12 to 15 feet tall. Red hair, six-fingered giants. The Smithsonian's own archives, you're 9 to 12 to 15 feet tall. So these are big guys.
So
they're not NBA players.
Your question, I'll put this into like the theological implications of it.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to Genesis 6, the Watchers. And this comes from Tom Horn. The rebellion it was biological, not just moral. It was a biological rebellion.
Tom had a very particular perspective on this. He viewed the Watchers' incursion as the Watchers were looking for fit. This is the terminology he would always use: fit extensions. I personally have a different view.
What is that? I don't know what that means.
So Tom was what he wrote about was that the Watchers, and what according to his research, the Watchers were looking for fit extensions in that they could extend themselves into. In other words, possessing, something like possessing men.
Yeah.
Who would then copulate with women, and that's how the Watchers procreated. I don't think that's true, because you have to deal with, which we've talked about extensively on your show. You have to deal with what I call the first cause of the Watchers' rebellion, which is lust.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to fulfill a lustful impulse through somebody else. I mean, you could say, well, if you can possess somebody, but that doesn't fit the story. It doesn't. A Watcher possessing a man who copulates with a woman doesn't produce a giant, because you're using that man's semen. You're using that man's genetic material. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's clear that the Watchers themselves had sexual intercourse with women. That's crystal clear. And I don't think that Tom would necessarily deny that. But I'm just trying to illustrate he had a very nuanced view of the situation. But Tom was open to a lot of ideas. That was the fun thing. Conversations with Tom Horn is Tom was so intellectual, for one thing, very well read, and was just open to all kinds of ideas. He loved to kick around ideas, and some things he wouldn't say publicly. He would just love to kick around ideas, and especially over a glass of wine with ice in it.
With ice?
Yeah, he would put ice in his wine.
Come on.
And one of my favorite people in the world, Tom Horn. And it was a tragedy. I had some of the best, funnest times I've ever had in my life was with Steve Quayle and Tom Horn together, all three of us doing stuff. Like when we were filming out in the desert Southwest. It was just a blast. But that was years ago. That was when I was a young whippersnapper.
Now you're mature and wise, and
I'm becoming
the laurels of wisdom. But
decrepit old man.
On this topic, to connect back, the first, because I agree with you, was impregnation, which is what
that
Genesis
seems pretty clear
says.
Yeah.
But then there seems to be something where that's like either not allowed or it's been blocked. And now if you can genetically, like the first was esoteric and impregnation, now it's going to be genetic engineering to complete the same arc.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I think that we have the technology today to generate Nephilim.
Well, the question is like, is it still? I think the question in my mind is like, did they just survive everything? Like, have they been alive the whole time because they're from spirits, or are they still breeding?
Yeah, they have to be breeding. They're
not immortal.
We're not creating these giants in Afghanistan. Otherwise, our team that went in and got eaten would have been briefed on it. We're not creating them. We are studying them. We're probably at this point maybe captured some of them. Maybe we've captured some alive. I mean, if it were me and I was running these programs, I'd want a live one.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not even necessarily saying there's anything nefarious about trying to capture a live giant or study it. I think it's natural. I think if there's a dinosaur out there roaming around, we'd probably want to go get it, right?
I would do the same thing. Yeah.
So, but there was an instance, and I got to be really careful here. I don't ever want to get anybody in trouble. I better not.
Yeah. Okay.
There's reason. Let me just put it in these terms. There's reason to believe that there's a group of operators at a very high level who are committed believers. And I'm not necessarily talking about the famous Collins elite. We could talk about that later. Guys that are Christians who are well informed about the reality of the Genesis 6 affair and the Nephilim, who are in the mix at the highest levels. And I found that to be very encouraging when somebody told me that. And it wasn't just some random person.
Yeah.
When they told me that, they were encouraged when they encountered it, and I was encouraged when they told me. Because I thought, okay, we've got some really good guys. Mm-hmm. It's not just everything in the government is bad. No, that's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
There are very, very good people who are positioned in white hats in the intelligence community. Now, I don't simp. Is that the right? Is that what the young people are saying these days?
White hat.
I don't simp for the intelligence community or shill for the intelligence community. I don't. But I have a very complex view of people. When you talk about an agency or an institution, you're talking about people. Mm-hmm. And there's an eclectic mix of people in these institutions. And you do have good guys, even in the CIA.
Yep.
And in many cases, I personally believe it's the good guys who keep people like me out of trouble. And I certainly know it's the good guys who keep the people who tell me things out of trouble. So, generals, admirals, high-level intelligence people who happen to be Christians and are picking up chatter from guys like me. So, hey, if you're picking up this chatter,
thank you.
I can use the help.
I think it's so
Just
awesome.
Keep an eye on me when I get on a
watch
keep
list.
an eye on me when I get on a prop plane and fly over the Amazon.
Oh
Yeah, dude.
gosh. But I think it's so awesome what you're doing though, Tim, because it's like, I was just talking to a friend about this earlier of like, you see places like Africa, we talk about it on the show, like, and of course, South America as well. There's a reality that this is all real. I think at least for people like me who is just kind of in a little bit of a bubble, honestly, at times, you just kind of read it and you're like, okay, cool. Like there were giants in Genesis 6. That's wonderful. Let's keep going. Like there was a flood and there was this. But I love what you do in the sense that it really keeps in perspective that it's still real.
Yeah.
And that there is no other reality that's worth living in.
This is Steve Quayle told me this one time, and then I heard it from some military guys. These topics, giants, aliens, Genesis 6, the cyclic cataclysm, all these kind of things, that it's referred to in certain circles as core reality. Core reality. I always thought that'd be a cool name for like a TV show.
That's a great name.
Right? Core reality.
Yep.
So this is what they refer to as core reality. These topics, and this is what the deep black projects are involved in, and some of those projects are innocuous in the sense that there's nothing nefarious about them. They're just trying to investigate and understand and glean knowledge, and some of them are highly nefarious. Human experimentation, for example. Genetic experimentation. underground base, stuff that happens in underground bases. So it gets very dark. And I think that the congressmen and women who are looking into these topics, mind you, not just aliens, are encountering this dark reality, that there's something very nefarious going on here. And this is what people don't understand. I was on a podcast last night, and I kind of I was ranting about this and a little bit too unfiltered. So I'm going to be a little bit more filtered here.
Okay.
A little bit more restrained.
Wow. On the deep end, man.
So, there's a lot of armchair skeptics on social media. And these skeptics have allowed themselves to become accusers. And unfortunately, a lot of these accusers also identify as Christians. And if there's one thing you don't want to be as a Christian, you don't want to be a baseless accuser, because we know who the accuser is, and you don't want to be like him. And I think Christians forget this when they interact online. I think they feel like they have a license to go out there and their digital self can be a depraved bastard, right? And they feel like they have license to do this. They don't. Your digital self is an extension of your character. And so it's easy to sit back and label people as a liar or peddling psyops or shilling for this, that, or the other thing. It's easy to fling libel around because there's no consequences. Your digital person is out there in the world, excuse my French, but out there acting like an asshole, and yet, not, and anonymously for the most part. And, there's a lot of bots out there doing that too. And why am I saying this? Because a lot of people, and this is what I was talking about last night, again, on a different podcast, that there's a lot of people who are chiming in on the UFO stuff now are, number one, newcomers. They don't have the historical background to truly process this phenomenon. They're new. They're coming to the table now after rolling their eyes about this topic their entire life. Suddenly, okay, it's real, but here's the answer to it. It's like, I'm sorry, but that's like dropping out of high school like me, and then going to a physics conference with high-level physicists and mathematicians and being like, nah, I don't think so. I don't think that these equations are real. This is just a deception. That's what it's like. Like, no, you don't get it. You don't understand. You don't have the background to make that assessment.
Yeah.
And the problem is we now have material. We now have testimony out there by whistleblowers, and these guys are telling the truth, and everyone is accusing them of lying. And I was with Lou Elizondo the other day, and Lou told me, he said, it's so strange. We're finally telling the truth, and nobody believes us.
Crazy.
And when he says we're finally, it's like elements of the government are finally acknowledging this reality.
Yeah. And
whistleblowers who were in government, Lou was in government, David Grush was in government, and they're coming forward and they're saying, hey, American people, there's a crash retrieval program, a legacy crash retrieval program. Because everybody wants to knock these guys and say, these guys are all just CIA, government, liars, psyop, deception. And I'm always saying, whoa. If you're going to sling this libel around, you're going to call this guy a liar. I don't care about mistakes that were made publishing fake photos of UFOs. I know, for example, that Lou Elizondo feels he was deeply embarrassed by those mistakes he made. Okay, he was overly enthusiastic. He presented these photos on a couple occasions without doing the due diligence and making sure he vetted them. I made that mistake before, Everybody I know. Richard Dolan, who's the preeminent ufologist of our time, has made that mistake. We all make that mistake in this field. And so because Lou, for people who don't know, Lou's one of the whistleblowers who testified under oath. Because, I don't know why, but Google just decided to start listening to me right now.
Hey, there you go.
So, and that is a gray alien on my phone there. So,
Yeah, I want to ask you about the Grays
because Lou Elizondo was associated with Army intelligence and was involved in counterintelligence, everybody automatically assumes that he is perpetrating counterintelligence on us. He must be, because that's what he did in the Army. Well, first of all, counterintelligence doesn't mean you deceive people. That's not what counterintelligence is. Everybody thinks counterintelligence means your job is to deceive people. No, it's not. Counterintelligence is your job is to go find out what the enemy knows. That's counterintelligence. What intelligence does the enemy
so you
have?
Can counter it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's counterintelligence. And everybody thinks counterintelligence is, you're a professional liar. Come on, get educated, people. Counterintelligence is finding out what the enemy knows. That's it. That's what Lou did. And I'm not here to, I'm not, my job isn't, I'm not paid by Lou Elizondo. Okay. Lou's a friend. And this, I could say the same for Grush. People dunk on Grush because he worked for the government. So what? That's why they know what they know. And you know what they're telling you? They're telling you that these illegal, highly illegal programs have been developing in darkness outside of congressional oversight, and very nefarious things have been happening. And these legacy programs have been recovering crashed UFO, non-human technology, and non-human biological entities have been recovered for decades, and we don't have oversight over this program.
Oh, so here's what might help. Can we give a 20-minute ufology? Because I think most... Do you know who Bob Lazar is?
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy Corbell?
Not that name.
President Eisenhower reportedly met with the Greys, and there's all this...
1954, the Greada.
So he doesn't probably even know, which is probably like most people, if you haven't
We've never gone into UFOs or aliens on this show. That's one of the times.
I've never talked about it with you?
You're the first
Really?
one.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
that we've had on the show. So people might be like...
nasty comments incoming.
People are used
Last
to
time it was flat Earth. Welcome to UFOs.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
People
okay.
are used to the vehement defense of the truth, especially because that's our style, but they may not know what you're talking about. They might be uneducated.
Okay. So there's a extensive body of research in the background in what is called ufology. And it's not UFOlogy, it's ufology. And it's not, I'm not pointing at you guys, it's just everybody. I've heard so many people, even like congressional people and stuff, saying ufology. Ufology.
Okay.
So ufology is the study of UFOs. Now, a lot of people would assume, whatever. I mean, what are you going to learn, right? Whatever. You're studying flying saucers. No. There are facts that have been established. And this drives me nuts. It drives my friend Richard Dolan crazy. There are facts that have been established through competent, dedicated research by brilliant people that have just been crumpled up and thrown in the garbage by the newcomers. Mm. You can't do that. Not if you're going to be intellectually honest. People like the late Leonard Stringfield, who was, in his UFO reports, was writing about and documented the reality of crash retrieval of the legacy program decades ago, in the 70s. And his daughter Colette contacted me, and I've had a relationship with Stringfield's material and his daughter. Through she sent me some of his materials and stuff, and I was very honored by that because Stringfield was an old school top tier investigator. Okay, there was no internet in the 70s. These guys risking their lives back then would go track down the stories, interview the military personnel, go to the bases. I mean, these guys did the footwork, and were able to collect a lot of data, and that data, in my estimation, and you know, any ufologists worth their salt would, I think, attest that this data is conclusive. Okay, this isn't just, I saw a light in the sky. No, you're tracking down people who were there, who had firsthand knowledge of a crash retrieval, that sort of thing, and documenting it. And there's a lot of documentation. That's just in the crash retrieval side of things. And you got guys like Stanton Friedman, who did a lot of and Stanton Friedman was a nuclear physicist, did a lot of work on the Roswell event, and a bunch of other things. And he was coming at this topic from a highly intellectual, professional standpoint. And that's another sort of branch of this. And of course, you know, you have some of the old school guys like Donald Kehoe and some of these older guys that were out there in the 60s and 50s talking about this topic. And then you have, in the realm of alien abduction, you have very competent researchers, again, before the internet, who were doing the footwork, doing all of the investigative work to build these cases for these realities, such as especially Dr. Carla Turner, Dr. David Jacobs, but also Bud Hopkins, who's a pioneer in this. And I'll throw John Mack in there, Dr. John Mack in there, although I think John Mack, I highly regard Dr. John Mack, who was the head of the Department of Psychiatry at Harvard. Mack did a lot of great work initially. I think he drew the wrong conclusions about the phenomenon, but like I said, Bud Hopkins, Carla Turner, and David Jacobs and others, who I think established beyond reasonable doubt that the abduction phenomenon is real, that it's physical. It's not a near-death experience.
Yeah.
It's not a demonic possession. It's not an out-of-body experience. It's not sleep paralysis.
It's not astral. It's like
it's not astral projection. It's the Greys, mostly the Greys, come get you and take you on their vessel, and you are gone. You're physically missing. Not your spirit. You didn't go somewhere in your imagination. You're gone. You know why you're gone? You know why you're not laying on your couch or laying in your bed? Because you're on their vessel. And not to get too deep into the abduction phenomenon, but you are on their vessel, being incorporated involuntarily into their breeding program.
Breeding program?
Yeah, they're breeding hybrids, alien-human hybrids.
I didn't even know that.
That is the purpose of the abduction program, as far as we can tell. And you know, they extract semen from males. They take eggs from females. They modify the eggs in vitro, add in some sort of exotic alien component, and then they implant the zygote into the womb. Even women who don't have wombs, who've had hysterectomies, there's an extra uteral insertion, implantation, to where the woman can be carrying a fetus even without a womb. And the whole purpose of this is to, again, as far as we can tell, is to have that human connection to the mother. Because the end goal is to create human alien hybrids that are indistinguishable from us. Why? Well, in the words of Dr. David Jacobs, the end goal is planetary acquisition through stealth. It's conquest by stealth.
Is this where we're starting to see some of the like sightings of reptilians or?
No, that's a different thing.
Totally
This is the what David Jacobs describes the advanced alien human hybrids as hybrids, and it's a systematic program of hybridization. So, John Mack and David Jacobs, both of these researchers, abduction researchers, and David Jacobs was a history teacher at Temple University. And both of them had a list of, and I wish I had him. I didn't know we were going to talk about abduction. But if had I known, I would have brought these lists with me. Both of them said, okay, if you are going to make the claim that alien abduction is just psychological or it's non-physical, it's just some spiritual phenomenon, then you have to account for this. And they each had a different list of bullet points.
And they never came back, these people?
They come back, yeah. But they're gone. When they're gone, they're gone. They're not there anymore.
They just come back and they're pregnant.
Well, they're not. No one knows they're pregnant yet until they. Most women don't realize they're pregnant because they're re-abducted before they start to show, and the fetuses are extracted, and then they're put into a gestation tank to complete the rest of their the rest of their development.
And didn't you have somebody? Sorry, I just have to interject while we're here because there's so many questions people are wondering. Like last year at the conference, wasn't there somebody whose literally part of their job was to check multiple witnesses, and then they would get the same story from multiple people who don't know one person from another?
That's what abduction researchers do. Yeah, that's what abduction researchers do, or did. There aren't, as far as I know, there aren't any. And forgive me if there's somebody out there that qualifies here, but I don't know of any competent abduction researchers anymore. The field is too tainted with the New Age and all kind of nonsense. The people I've referenced were very scientific in their approach. And they had evidence. I'm going to say this. Okay, I have a friend who I have suspected of being an abductee for years, and just always suspected. A good friend of mine, and there's physical evidence with the abduction phenomenon. Unlike some of the other aspects of UFO research, it's hard to get physical evidence. Not with the abduction phenomenon. Again, when you're being abducted, you're not there. You're not in your bed anymore. You're not in your house. You're gone for an extended period of time, and then you're brought back. Sometimes abductees, when they're brought back, they're not put back in their bed. They're left outside, and they have to break back into their house. They throw a chair through the window or something, or they have to call a locksmith to get back into their house. Sometimes they're brought back without their clothes on, or with their clothes on backwards, or with somebody else's clothes on. And they come back, in many cases, with physical scars, scoop marks, and different configurations of scars that they didn't have before they went to bed, apart from the fact that they come back, the women with fetuses in their wombs, which this is called missing fetal syndrome. Or missing fetus syndrome, rather. And what this means is that there's a phenomenon widely known in which women are pregnant. They have fetuses in their wombs, and then the fetuses are gone. And missing fetus syndrome. Well, those of us who are well-versed in alien abduction know it's not missing, it's just taken. So a woman, this is very, very common. In fact, I believe that all women are being used to incubate alien hybrids, all abductees, all female abductees. And even if they in real life, they can't get pregnant, doesn't matter. So you'll have a woman, in some cases, a virgin, who suddenly is pregnant, right? Oop, this is weird. She goes to a gynecologist. The gynecologist says, "You're pregnant." And she says, "That's impossible, okay? I'm like Mary over here. That's impossible." And the gynecologist, of course, doesn't believe her.
Yeah.
And she goes home and she's distraught. How can this be possible? Did I get, somebody slipped me a roofie? What happened? And she knows she's pregnant now. She's got a fetus. But before she starts to show, around the 3-month period, the Greys abduct her again, and they remove the fetus. And she goes back into her gynecologist. Baby's gone. Fetus is gone. And the gynecologist says, you must have had a miscarriage. And she says, "Well, as far as I know, I didn't have a miscarriage. But, the gynecologist is going to assume you had a miscarriage. You just didn't realize it." In some cases, the abductees are telepathically interlaced, I say, with the phenomenon, with the beings. And also they have implants. So there's technology implanted in their body that has been extracted, especially by the late Dr. Lear.
So we found them.
Oh, we have them. Yeah, certainly. Steven Spielberg has a collection of alien implants. So you can have a woman who's contemplating abortion when she realizes she's pregnant, and the Greys come and get the fetus. She goes in for the abortion. There's nothing there. Very common. And so again, this is an evidence-based field. You have people again who have scars, scoop marks. So going back to my friend who I've suspected for years as an abductee, he came into my office the other day, and he and I talk. He knows, he's very well versed on alien abduction and everything. Comes into my office and he goes, "Hey, I forgot to tell you, they came and got me." And I looked at him like, "What? Who came and got you?" He said, "They came and got me." And I said, "The Greys?" And he said, "Yeah, dude." And he pulled up his sleeve and showed me the scar. And it was a typical abduction scar. It was a delta-shaped 4 dots, 3 dots like a triangle, and then one in the middle. Typical abduction scar. He said, "Look, I had this wild experience at night." He knows about screen memories, which are false memories, which are implanted to cover up the authentic memories of the experience. He said, "I had this wild experience, which I think he even told me, I think it was a screen memory, and they got me, and I woke up with this." And I was just like,
whoa.
It was like a punch in the face. Like, oh my God, it's true.
So the purpose being they're trying to infiltrate and take over the planet, or are there other, because the Christians are saying that they're Nephilim.
What's Nephilim?
The aliens. They're like, all aliens are Nephilim, and you're saying, no, this is a race of
okay, well, if you're going to... Okay.
Taking them in hot water again.
So Christians approach this... They approach a lot of topics like this with containers. Pre-manufactured containers.
Mm-hmm.
This is called presuppositionalism, theologically speaking. So a presuppositionalist will approach a topic with the conclusion already in hand.
Yep.
And this is literally like a theological position. I'm a presuppositionalist, which means I've already determined through my reading of the Bible that the 6-day creation are literal 6 days. This is an example. And then this kind of a person will say, I am a presuppositionalist, which means that when I approach this topic, I don't care whatever the data is, I'm going to take that data, twist it, mangle it, compress it, and stick it into my Tupperware container with the label 6-day creation or whatever. That's a presuppositional theological position. I am not a presuppositionalist, so I don't have that container. But a lot of Christians, they carry around these little metaphysical Tupperware containers with a label on it. And here's one. Nephilim, fallen angels / Nephilim / demons. That's one. That's a container. It's like this little Tupperware container that they carry around with them, figuratively speaking. So here goes the Christian out into the world. Oh, I'm interested in the UFO thing. Okay, I hear about the testimonies in Congress, whatever, alien abduction. Oh, that's easy. Right into this container.
Giant bias.
This one's labeled fallen angels, Nephilim, demons. Got it. Put the lid on that sucker and you're good to go. Right?
Yep.
That's what so many Christians do. I'm sorry, but that's what they do.
It's true. That's true.
That's called presuppositionalism. You have a presumption that anything weird, unexplainable, has got to be fallen angels, Nephilim, demons.
Same psychologically with the confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias is another way to say it. But I like to think of people carrying Tupperware around in the pocket.
Nice image.
So pulling that Tupperware out of their backpack and just like, oh, that's unexplainable. Well, let me put that here. This will fit here. It really doesn't. It's like taking the kids' little wooden shape game where they have to put the right shape in the right mold, right, the right hole, and it's like taking a rectangle and you got to circle in the wood, and you take this rectangle, but everything has to fit into your circle. So what do? You put the rectangle on, and then you grab you grab a hammer and you pound it in there.
Chisel.
You just smash it in there. It doesn't matter if in the process you're destroying the facts. It doesn't matter.
You cut away data to make it fit.
That's right. Or you cut away data. Yeah. That's a better way to say it.
Yeah.
You shave that. You shave off the corners of that rectangle to make it a circle so that it fits into your circle hole, your circular hole. That's not good research. That's not good. And that's not investigative prowess. That's bias. And I'm sorry, I'm an investigative researcher. I don't operate from presuppositions. I'm looking for facts, and I formulate my understanding of reality, such as it is, based on what I can determine to be either likely true or stone cold fact.
Uh-huh.
And I don't walk around with Tupperware. So now, as everyone knows, I'm anchored in the gospel of Christ.
Uh-huh.
My worldview, we've talked about that. I have a Christocentric perspective of the universe.
Yep.
And so forth. But the problem is that so many Christians approach this topic and they've already predetermined what the answer is, regardless of the facts. If you're going to do that, that's great, but don't call yourself a researcher. Don't call yourself a researcher. If you're coming to the table with a preconceived notion and your Tupperware container that you're going to slam all this information into, I'm sorry, it's just, that's not the way the world works. And so the only way for Christians to make sense of this phenomenon, biblically speaking, is to slap one of these three labels on it: fallen angel, Nephilim, demon. And if you say to a Christian, okay, that's nice, but these facts are in conflict with that theory. Some Christians who I've encountered will go, oh, you're right. Ooh, you're right. I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board here. Most Christians go, I don't care about, just PSYOP, Project Bluebeam. That's forcing that square rectangular peg into a circle, into the circular hole. Oh, it's all deception. It's just all deception.
Right.
I got to calm down. I'm going to get all worked up.
Pause. Say, well, pause. Hold on. Let me get you back in. Here's my question. Everything you're saying is true, and I understand that more than most people. It's not necessarily in conflict with the Bible. It's in conflict with their interpretation or their Tupperware.
Yes.
So what you know more about this than anyone I've ever talked to. So what does it mean? What were the grays around when Jesus was born?
I'm going to present you with one of the most problematic presuppositional positions.
Okay.
The Bible tells us about everything.
Interesting. Got it.
Wrong.
Got it.
The Bible tells us about some things, is the fact. Any rational person knows that to be true.
Yes.
We have the Son of God, who's the maker, by the way, according to the scriptures.
Yes.
This is through whom and for whom
all things
were created.
And have their being. Yep.
So this is the maker walking among us in the first century. And he is walking through Judea, teaching about the kingdom of heaven in the form of analogy, by the way, and rather allegory, which are parables. Parables are a form of allegory. So he's analogizing the kingdom of heaven in the form of parables, which is, again, allegory. And he's teaching people about the kingdom. That's what he's doing fundamentally. And he's reprimanding the teachers of the law, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, as he's going along. And he's healing the sick and demonstrating that he is who he's saying he is. This is the work of Jesus of Nazareth. This is the maker of the universe. Okay? He could have at any moment instructed the Jews who are under the domination of the Romans. He could have said, let me tell you something about this thing called electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Internal combustion. the germ theory of disease. Hey, physicians, let me gather all the physicians together. I want you guys to do one thing before you deliver a baby. Wash your hands. Any of these things, which would have upgraded instantly any of these scientific fields, instantly upgraded them to such extent that he could have taught the scientific thinkers among the Jews to develop weapons and tools to overthrow the Romans if he wanted.
Yep.
Not one single syllable about any of this. Right?
Right.
Yep.
He didn't tell us anything about any of that. He didn't say, hey, you see these stars out here? You see these planets and all this? Let me tell you what's out there. Let me draw you a schematic of where you are in the midst of all this. He knows, he made it. Nothing about any of that. He talked to us like we were freaking toddlers and tried to tell us about the kingdom and his Father. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. That's what he did. So if that's what the Son of God did in the flesh, why do we expect the Bible to tell us about any of these things? I don't understand. Somebody needs to inform me. Why would I expect the Bible? We have the Word of God in flesh, not in print, in flesh, who could have easily told us about the internet or said, in the future, people are going to have this thing called the internet. People are going to be flying around in these big metal birds, right? He didn't tell us anything like that. God doesn't have to tell you anything, right?
True.
God is not obliged to tell you anything. You're a toddler. He'll tell you only what you need to know in order to seek him, in order to live your life according to the precepts, principles of the kingdom of heaven. That's what Jesus was doing. Yep. In order to believe in his Son, which is the commandment of the Father, by the way. What is the commandment of the Father according to Jesus? To believe in his Son. So Jesus was not interested in upgrading the scientific knowledge of the Jews. Not to say that scientific pursuits are ungodly. On the contrary, I believe scientific pursuits like those of Isaac Newton, who's motivated by understanding the Maker's creation.
Yep.
That was his motivation. He wrote about it many times.
Yep.
His motivation was he was in awe of God's creation, and he felt like God had given him this mind to probe the mysteries.
Which, for the record, he wrote, I think, 4 times more theology.
Much more theology
than scientific.
Some of that theology is brilliant. Some of it,
Yeah, but he was interested.
I read Newton.
Yeah.
I love Newton. Newton's like my hero. People say, "Oh, he's a Freemason." And like, you know what? Just
back.
Shut mouth.
Back.
This is a guy who created calculus in less time than it takes a college student to learn it.
Discovered.
Yeah, discovered.
You got a lot of hate on the last.
Discovered calculus.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, the point is, the Bible tells us very little about anything, but very much about the Son of God and about what we need to do to please God, to know God, to govern righteously on earth, right? And to enter the kingdom.
Yes. That's
what the Bible tells us. Now, does it tell us other things? Are there clues and hints? Of course. Mm-hmm. Of course. There are things that are hidden. Prophecy is esoteric, as we've talked about before. So, this is the slogan of my members community. It is the glory of God to conceal things, but the glory of kings to search things out.
Yeah.
God is in the business of concealing things. Sorry, he is.
I just feel like we forget how big he is sometimes.
Yeah.
We forget how freaking small we are. We're 6 foot.
We know nothing.
Tiny little,
we're infants.
Yeah.
And here we are thinking that the 66 books of the Bible written by Iron Age people is supposed to tell us about everything that there is. Why?
Which, just to draw a distinction, does not belittle your reverence for
Absolutely
Scripture.
not.
You love Scripture.
No, I have a Christocentric perspective.
Correct.
I put Christ at the center of all things. This story, as I've said on your show, is not about us. It's about him. It's his story. We're an ancillary character in his story. That's why, you know what? If you don't believe in him and you don't align yourself, if your allegiance isn't with the King of Heaven, goodbye. Because it ain't about you. It's about him and those who are with him. And it's his story. You are insignificant compared to the Son of God. Infinitely insignificant. The Father loves his Son more than any of us. That's a biblical fact. And people say, well, but he sent his Son to die. Yes, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. But he glorified his Son, and he put him on top of everything. And if you reject his Son, this Father who sent his Son to die for you is going to send you to hell. So he loves his Son more than you. Your allegiance has to be with the Son of God. And that is the important thing. That's the thing that matters. And that's my testimony. That's my witness. So why am I talking about that? Oh, so from a Christocentric perspective, it doesn't matter how big the universe it is. It doesn't matter what else is out there. Who cares? It's not my story. God is not under no obligation to tell me. My responsibility is to believe what has been revealed. And what has been revealed, the primary thing, the message, the memo, is that Jesus is his Son. And the commandment of God is to believe in his Son. And the commandment of the Son, is to love one another. Mm-hmm. Oops. All those Christian trolls out there.
We're screwed.
Oops. So the commandment of God is to love, is to believe in his Son, and the commandment of Jesus Christ is to love one another. And that's, again, the scripture reveals a lot that's hidden. So most of those hidden things are not understood anyway by the Christian community, by pastors, by theologians, by scholars. Most of those things are not understood because there's a wisdom that trumps scholarship. It's the kind of wisdom that Solomon had. It's wisdom that can only be understood and communicated through symbolism and through astrology. And when I say astrology, I don't mean divination. I don't mean worshiping the stars.
Taking personality from
I mean the things, you guys were at my conference, the things that are written in the stars.
The book of nature.
It's the book of nature. Yeah. And the witness of the stars, which is the testimony of the Son of God and his victory over the powers of darkness. That's what I'm talking about when I say astrology. Biblical astrology is a witness of the Son of God. Right?
Yep.
So the point is, going back to the original point, God is under no obligation to tell you anything and to assume that human beings, that we have knowledge of everything out there, because the Bible tells us XYZ is a presuppositional position that is erroneous, and I would add absurd. It's just not true. It's just not true. There's no verse in the Bible, not one, that tells you about robots. Now you can take some random thing and twist it, but there's no verse that tells you about robots. Do we live in a world with robots?
Yeah, and so therefore we have to study it extra biblically.
Well, do we live in a world with robots?
Yeah.
Is there a verse that tells you about a gray alien?
No.
Do we live in a world with gray aliens? So it's very simple. But people need to approach these topics rationally. And the problem is we approach these topics emotionally with our Tupperware.
Yeah.
And we get offended if somebody like Timothy Alberino, the master perpetrator of psyops over here, apparently.
That's your Twitter bio. It should be. Yeah.
I'm going to make a t-shirt. That I'm deceiving people because I have acknowledged the reality of the crash retrieval program and biologicals. I also acknowledge the reality of robots. And I also acknowledge the reality of internet. And I also acknowledge the reality of airplanes, internal combustion, lasers, whatever. Because these things are real. The Bible didn't tell me about any of these things. And people say, well, those things don't really bear upon salvific issues. Yes, they do. Hello, transhumanism? How do I navigate through transhumanism? The Bible didn't tell me that we would have the technology to extend our lives. Now, there are some ambiguous references that you could extrapolate that's being predicted, but not directly. So how do I navigate this? The same way I navigate the alien question. I anchor myself in the gospel of Christ. Okay? I place Christ at the center of all things. He is the king of the universe. All things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things. And in him all things consist. That's my eschatology. Those are my fundamental tenets. That's my worldview. I don't care if robots exist. I don't care if gray aliens exist. What does it matter? And then, of course, people say, well, but if there's aliens, then what about, didn't Jesus die for us on the cross? And did he die for does that mean he died for aliens? I'm like, I don't care. He didn't die for angels. You think this is a new, philosophical problem here? It's not. It's the same one as he didn't die for angels. Okay? Same answer. It's clear. He did not help the angels. And what that means is he didn't provide a way of rectification and restoration into the family of God, reconciliation for the angels, because they had more knowledge than we do. He provided a way for us. Now, what does that mean for a gray alien or an insectoid or something else? I don't know, and I frankly don't care. I don't care. I don't have a Tupperware. I don't have to smash things in there, because Christ is at the center of my universe, not man. That's the problem, see? We've talked about this on your show.
Yeah.
People are hamstrung with an anthropocentric perspective of the universe. All about us. We're at the center of this thing. No, we're not. Christ is at the center. And that small maneuver there, where you take us out, you make us a spoke on the wheel, and you put Christ as the hub, really expands your paradigm sufficiently to where all of these things can be accommodated without a problem.
So because it doesn't matter to you, does that mean you don't have a hypothesis?
Oh no, I have a hypothesis. I have thoughts. But what I'm trying to illustrate here is, in the absence of information, as it pertains to as it pertains to gray aliens, let's be specific. The Christian approaches the topic with his Tupperware container.
Mm-hmm.
And under the presupposition that the Bible does tell us what this is, see, I have a container that says fallen angel, Nephilim, demon.
It has to be one of those three.
So they squish it in there.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, maybe not. Maybe there's aspects of this that can be answered by some of that. Let's take the first one, quote unquote, fallen angel, which are just apostate sons of God. Fallen is not a term like a physical description of anything. In fact, it's not even a biblical term, fallen angel. It's a biblical idea, but it's not a biblical term. The fallen aspect here is called insubordination, defection from the kingdom.
Rebel.
Right. They don't look different. They're not a different species. They're siblings of the good guys. They just happen to be on the wrong side of this thing. They're in opposition to the King of Heaven rather than loyal. They're not loyal to him. They're disloyal. Disloyal sons of God. Right? Okay. So you have these guys that are very, very old. They pre-exist us. We've talked about this on your show. I know I'm being repetitive here. These are things we've discussed. These beings pre-exist us, full stop. That's a biblical fact. The sons of God pre-exist us, biblically speaking. So, and I'm going to also add to this that their civilization pre-exists ours. Now, most Christians aren't accustomed to thinking about the kingdom of heaven as a civilization, but that's what it is. They have technology. They manufacture and wield technology. That's apparent. I mean, it's apparent in the biblical narrative. Now, people say, no, they just pretend to, or it's just spiritual, or here's an oxymoron, supernatural technology. It's an oxymoron. So, and the reason why that's an oxymoron is because if something is supernatural, it's above nature. Technology is availing of things that we know about nature, and we take the things we know about nature and we make technology. If something is supernatural, it's unknown, right? And if you label this thing supernatural, for example, let's go back to the medieval world. They didn't know where diseases came from. So the medieval person would attribute diseases to foul air, literally foul air, or demonic spirits, which I think there's some truth to that. But of course, we know that like the common cold isn't a demon,
yeah,
right? We know what happens. How do I get the cold? It's not demon possession. I come into contact with someone who's got that virus, and I get infected, and I get the cold, right? So that's the germ theory of disease. So, but in the Middle Ages, in that world, from their understanding, they thought that diseases came from the things previously mentioned. Supernatural causes, foul air. They had a host of ridiculous ideas until somebody invented a technological implement called the microscope. And then we took the microscope, which gave us a new perspective. We looked through that microscope and we saw like a new world of living things that we didn't see before. And we're like, oh, okay. There's these things that are alive and that get into our bodies. Some of these things are what we call bacteria, and others are like these little machines called viruses. And then we extrapolated the gene theory we formulated the gene theory of diseases. So the point is, a thing is only supernatural when it's not comprehended, right? Mm-hmm. But once you've gained insight, in the case of germ theory through technology, it's no longer super, and now it's just natural.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what is supernatural? Okay, God is supernatural. God is supernatural. That's the one supernatural thing in existence. Everything else is a part of this thing we call the universe, and abides by the laws of physics, and is a part of the natural world. And I always quote Arthur C. Clarke that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Mm-hmm. And I always like to substitute that word. Any is indistinguishable from supernaturalism. Okay, so that's why so many people get confused with the UFO stuff. Man, I've gone far afield here. But that's why so many people get confused with the UFO stuff, because they say, wait a minute, these things disappear. They do this, they do that. They're these capabilities, alien abductions, people, it's like a near-death experience. All of this is supernatural, spiritual. And it's like, no, it's technological. Clearly. Just really, really, really mind-blowingly advanced technology. Some of which we've reverse engineered. So this is a different level of comprehension here. I don't have a bucket. I don't have a supernatural Tupperware in my pocket. Mm-hmm. So that's why I like to say that the word supernatural has no explanatory power. I don't mind if people use it. I understand what people mean. I get it. I comprehend what people mean by it. But if you think about it, the word supernatural has no explanatory power. It doesn't explain anything. It doesn't describe anything. It's amorphous. It's nebulous. So we're looking at, going full circle here back to the UFO, the Crash Retrieval Legacy Program. We are looking at a technological phenomenon with biological creatures. There's a lot of debate on where they come from, what they are. Are they time travelers? Are they interdimensional beings? Are they crypto-terrestrial beings? Are they manifestations of the universal consciousness? These are all the newfangled ideas. Some of them aren't newfangled, but a lot of these are newfangled ideas. Are they artificial intelligence? It's like, I don't know, but they crash and die.
And they have bodies.
And they have bodies. And if you ever get a chance to put a bullet in one, it will drop dead. So these are things that are knowns. These are the knowns that I was talking about earlier from the old school ufology. We know these things.
Yeah.
We don't have to rediscover these things. We know them to be true. And you can't, by the way, let me just throw this out there. I want to increase the amount of mean comments you guys are going to get on this video.
You always do this,
Let's do this. All right, so everybody says, "Oh, okay, it's interdimensional." That's the default. Even Representative Luna and Apollina Luna. It's interdimensional. Obviously, nobody, by the way, nobody that I interact with is committing to any interdimensional hypothesis.
And can you explain the boundary lines of interdimensional? It's not that they can't go between dimensions, but they're explicitly
interdimensional. Is a little bit like the word supernatural in that it is nearly meaningless. Because first you have to determine what you mean by interdimensional before you can try and formulate some kind of theory of UFOs. Interdimensional means nothing on its own. You have to reference a scientific theory here. Are we talking multiverse? Are we talking...
the astral plane?
Are we talking... oh, shoot. I just drew a blank. The brand of physics that Michio Kaku is a proponent of, superstring theory. Are we talking about superstring theory here? What are we talking about? Are we talking about the extra-spatial theory of the universe? What are we talking about here? Because all of these are very different theories, distinct theories in physics. So when you say interdimensional, which one of these theories are you invoking? I already know the answer. Most people aren't invoking a theory. They're invoking a movie.
What movie?
They're invoking the Marvel universe.
Mm-hmm.
They're invoking, not to much less extent, but you could invoke the Chronicles of Narnia, the wardrobe that takes you to Narnia. They're invoking pop culture, right? That's the problem. See, because they don't understand, most people don't understand. I didn't until I educated myself that interdimensional is nothing until you've given it a destination. Where did you start? Where did you go?
I would assume they just mean consciousness. It's like it's in that dimension.
Well, here's what people are invoking. Doctor Strange doing this with his ring, opening the portal, and then going into the multiverse.
Are you good or are you bored?
I'm good.
Okay.
My brain's just like trying to hang on.
You guys just got to cut me off. I talked for 7 hours yesterday.
This is great.
So I'll wrap this up. So when you talk about interdimensional hypothesis, you have to determine of aliens. You have to determine which hypothesis are you referring to, or are you just like doing the Marvel universe?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's fantasy. Or are you referencing some scientific theory, some theory in physics, astrophysics, or whatever? What's your theory? Because before you use that word, you got to have a destination. If this is an interdimensional being, where is it going? Is it Stranger Things? Is it going to Planet X or whatever that's called in Stranger Things? The Abyss?
The Upside Down.
The Upside Down we learned was a wormhole. Okay. But stupid plot.
I haven't seen season 5, okay?
So Conformity Gate.
Dear God,
I just want to boost your views. This is great. If we say Conformity Gate, you boost your views. People are like, Alberino knows about Conformity Gate? So anyway, what's your theory, right? So if it's interdimensional, okay, here's another aspect. Is it a physical being that's taking advantage of extra dimensions? Or is the very nature of the being not physical, not subject to the 3 dimensions and fourth of time in our world? You've got to specify what you mean by interdimensional, or you have literally said nothing.
But you sound smart.
But you sound smart. You sound like you got an answer. So you don't. Now, I'm not against the interdimensional hypothesis with certain specifications. Let's modify this. So I subscribe to the hyperspatial theory of the universe. I called it extraspatial. I meant hyperspatial. What is the hyperspatial theory of the universe? This theory fits into string theory. Now, I don't know if string theory is real. I kind of like it. It's elegant because I think it resonates
we
with
won't ever know if
the
it's
Bible.
real. We can't know if it's real.
Maybe so. But the hyperspatial theory of the universe posits that there are more dimensions, physical dimensions, keep that in mind, of our universe than the 3 physical dimensions and the one of time. String theorists propose that there are at least 10. Superstring theory, at least 11. But what do they mean by extra dimensions? They don't mean Planet X or whatever it's called in Stranger Things. They don't mean Narnia. They don't mean the multiverse. They mean that there are 3 large dimensions, like the ones we interact with, length, height, width, and then the 4th of time. So those are the large dimensions, and then they posit 6 additional physical dimensions that are infinitesimal, tiny, on the Planck level, subatomic, that we can't interact with, but are there. So these are subatomic dimensions, okay? So at CERN, when they say they're looking for other dimensions, they're not looking for the multiverse. They're looking for these subatomic dimensions. And when they say something come through, they mean these particles. Now, can you make use of these dimensions, maybe for teleportation or something? Yeah, I mean, that's Star Trek. That's, more specifically, that's not Star Trek. Excuse me. That's Star Wars. That's Star Wars. Star Wars uses the hyperspace highway, right? So when they're going to kick into hyperspace, this is actually very scientific, according to like superstring theory. They kick into hyperdrive, they jump into a hyperspatial highway that is a shortcut between 2 places in the universe. But they start off in a physical part of the universe and they end in a physical part of the universe. Okay. Could you describe that action as interdimensional? Yeah. Because they're making use of an extra spatial dimension. That's interdimensional, right?
Is this the Einstein-Rosen bridge, or is this?
Yeah, so this is an Einstein-Rosen bridge concept. You can make a shortcut through 2 different, this is the piece of paper, you fold it, you poke a hole. Yeah. So that poking a hole is an interdimensional. Why is it interdimensional? Because it goes through, it's making use of another dimension, right? So you've opened up a dimensional portal, but it's not taking you to a different universe. It's taking you from, let's say, planet Earth to Mars. You're still inside of our universe. So when you invoke an interdimensional being, such a thing doesn't really exist unless you are saying that there is a completely different universe that has different laws of physics, and those beings are coming from that universe. Well, that's called multiverse, which I reject out of hand. You know why multiverse was created? Because astrophysicists and physicists and mathematicians and scientists in general realized that the universe had a beginning.
Nice.
And they realized that, oops, there's a creator. How do we circumvent this idea of a creator? Well, universes are popping up everywhere. And I said that the universe had a beginning. Specifically, they realized not only did the universe have a beginning, but our universe is fine-tuned for life to exist right here on Earth. There's a fine-tuning of the universe. It has to be so finely tuned that there's nothing that we can create that is as nothing, that is as finely tuned as our universe for it to be the way it is. Oops. That's intelligent design. So what are the scientists, what are the atheistic physicists doing? How do we circumvent this?
They invent another theory.
I got it. There's universes popping up every second with other physical attributes. Ours just happens by happenstance to be the way it is. In the midst of a bajillion other ones.
Infinite.
We just happen to be living in the one where it works like this.
Because it fits the statistical impossibility. Yeah. Because if there's infinite universes,
that's right.
Then,
you're precisely right.
Then we fix it.
It's a circumvention of the plain fact that the universe had a beginning and somebody created it. Do Christians who invoke the interdimensional thing understand that? Hello? Multiverse is a circumvention of creation, of a creator, of intelligent design. So people say, well, I'm not talking about multiverse. Yes, you are. You are. So we only know of one universe. All of the other scientific theories, and I could bore you guys with all the different positions because there's a lot of them. But all of the ones that are mainstream, like superstring theory, the dimensions are in our universe. Now there are aspects where people will try and extrapolate out to multiverse stuff, but that's all highly superstring theory too. These are all highly. This is all in the realm of conjecture. Hypothesis. These are hypotheses. So most of these hypotheses involve extra dimensions in our universe. So the beings if there are beings who are making use of these extra dimensions, we might be one of those beings in the future. Those beings by nature are not themselves interdimensional. They're part of our universe, but they're making use of extra dimensions that exist in our universe, or of properties of physics and things that we're not familiar with.
Yeah.
To do things, technologically speaking. So they're not by nature interdimensional. This is the confusion. Now, if the multiverse exists and you have a being who comes from one of these bubbles, one of these other universes that has different laws of physics, and they pop over into our universe, okay, that's an interdimensional being. And that being is by nature interdimensional. But here's the question, I'll wrap with this. This is exhausting because it's very highly complex. If one of those beings pops into our universe, let's say we got a being coming from planet Zeta out there, interdimensional planet, which means multiverse bubble. The properties, the physical properties of that universe are different from ours. Their bodies are different. Everything is different. That's a totally different world, right? Mm-hmm. So they're materializing into our world based on the properties of our world. Here they come through some interdimensional gate. Interdimensional beings by nature arrive. They crash.
Because it doesn't work with our laws of physics.
They crash.
Yeah.
We recover their technology. How the heck do we make any sense of it?
We don't. So
I mean, how the heck? That's like me and you discovering a book that is written in Braille, and we know nothing about Braille. It's just these little dots and stuff. How do you and I make any sense of that? We don't. We literally don't,
bro.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we don't make any sense of it. So that's like an interdimensional craft coming into our environment, crashing. We recover it. How do we even begin to try and reverse engineer interdimensional technology? It doesn't even operate on the same laws of physics. Clearly, that is not what is happening. We are recovering craft that is made in our universe, that is somehow bound by the same laws of physics as we are, but is using mechanisms that we are unaware of. And we are able, therefore, to reverse engineer it because we can understand at least the rudimentary principles. That's what's happening. And the beings who are recovered, who crash and die, are not interdimensional by nature. They're physical, just like us. They have organs. They have some kind of blood, although it's not like our blood. They have a body frame, a body structure that's similar to ours. So they have brains. That's the reality. That's a reality. And that's just me dunking on the interdimensional hypothesis a little bit. Now, again, let me state for the record, I believe in the hyperspatial theory of the universe. I believe there are more dimensions, physical dimensions, than the three we're directly aware of, that we can perceive. I believe that angels can perceive the totality and access the totality of creation, and we could at one time as well in the beginning. But we have a problem which Paul calls cataracts. Well, which he describes, he didn't call it, which he describes as cataracts. He doesn't use that word. I'm using that word. He describes it as cataracts because he said we see as if through a mirror dimly, or through a glass dimly. That's cataracts. Mm-hmm. So, because we have all this stuff, this film in front of our eyes. But Adam didn't, I would suggest. So I think we need to be careful. We need to retool our minds here. We need to stop looking for easy answers. Stop carrying around your Tupperware container and trying to shove everything into it, and then accusing people who don't think like that of being, shilling for the devil. That's probably my favorite one that people throw out there.
Do you think we'll get back to where Adam was? Like, can there be a reversing?
Yeah. That's called the resurrection. That's called the resurrection.
Okay.
We get reset to the blueprint of Adam.
Got it.
We go back into the kingdom of sons of God, like Adam was, a son of God, going back in. So that's how you punch your ticket back into the kingdom. By the way, it's called the resurrection. So you're resurrected to eternal life.
And that happens.
And if you think hard enough about that, I just open up
I was going to say we might
theological can of worms. We're going to have to put a pin in that one. But
we'll have to bring it back to go into that one.
Yeah. So I'm not trying to take shots at anybody. I'm just trying to force people to, in regard to the interdimensional stuff, define your terms before you go around pretending like you got the answer to everything and accusing people who don't think like that of being liars or deceivers or being deceived themselves. Define your terms. So I'm fine with an interdimensional hypothesis as long as it can be properly defined. Now, if you want to believe in the multiverse, go right ahead. But I don't think multiverse is biblical. And so that's fine.
Okay.
That's your prerogative. But
last question, because you've opened up now dimensions. The spiritual reality where these angels and demons and creatures and whatever else exists there, is that one of those dimensions that you reference?
No, I think that's all within the universe.
We just can't see it.
Yeah, it's a problem of perception.
Got
so I think that we don't understand what spirit means. We have a westernized comprehension, a westernized theory of what spirit means, but it doesn't really, in my mind, it doesn't conform to reality. Because right here, I have a spirit, you have a spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a spirit. We are spirit, but we're also flesh. And I'm not a Gnostic. Gnostics believe that the spirit is good, the flesh is bad. That's a very truncated,
right?
That's a very truncated definition of Gnosticism. But nevertheless, it's true. Gnostics believe that the spiritual world is the good world and the physical world is the bad, imperfect world. And that's not a biblical concept. So the spirit and the flesh, at least as it pertains to us, are intricately connected. They're inseparable. People say, well, we're going to have spirit bodies. No, we're not. We're going to have these bodies resurrected. That's what we're going to have. How do I know that? Jesus of Nazareth. That's how I know it. He was resurrected with his body, even with the marks of the crucifixion. So, and as he is, so shall we be at the resurrection. So the point is, we are composites of spirit and flesh. We were designed to be this way. And this is how we are always going to be, just without all of the degeneration and mutation that we've accrued over many generations. So we have a concept, and it's possible that the ancient Hebrews had this concept also, but I don't think it conforms to reality. We have created in our minds, we have created this cosmology in which there is a spiritual world. But somebody needs to show me where that spiritual world, show me how that's, if there's a spiritual world, what do people do in that spiritual world that is different than they do in this one? What's the answer?
I don't know.
Are there trees? Are there sunsets? Are there clouds? Most Christians would conceive that there's streets and whatever, because the Bible says, streets of gold and so. Are there buildings? I mean, what are we talking about here? What is the spiritual realm that people invoke? What is it? Is it just like gusts of, everybody's like a gust of wind? What is it? Nobody dares define it because it's irrational.
Well, I've always posited that it's tied to different things that you can see. It's different layers of consciousness. When Paul says I was taken up into the third heaven, he saw things. But they weren't necessarily different things than what we see here.
Are people eating in the spiritual realm? Are they drinking?
Yes.
Are they making music?
Yes.
Then what makes it different than ours?
Well, the same thing that makes the level of consciousness, if you get to a certain level, you can.
So maybe
you can
it's just a
interpret different
transcendent
things,
version of this reality,
potentially. Yeah.
right?
Or maybe it's just a stacked reality.
Or something like that,
Yeah.
which is a different view than most people have.
Yeah.
My point is, we're going to be eating and drinking in the kingdom of heaven.
Absolutely.
So it's not all that different than.
But is your theory that the Greys will be there or no?
Well, that depends on what you mean. I'm not talking about. See, what I'm trying to say is there is no spiritual realm. There's just the kingdom of heaven, and the kingdom of heaven is a place, and I believe it has locality. And we are already spiritual beings, and so I think we have a misconception. That's almost like a multiverse, right? It's like there is one bubble, there is one multiverse that Christians hold. It's called the spiritual world, or the spiritual realm. That's like one of those multiverse bubbles. I don't think so. I think everything is inside of the universe,
Including the spiritual
including the kingdom of heaven.
realm.
I think the kingdom of heaven is right at the center of it.
Near you. So
I don't think
Jesus
Earth is the
said.
center of the universe. I think this is literally the kingdom of heaven, where let's be more specific, where the Son of God reigns, is the center of the universe. So if he's reigning somewhere else, then that's the center of the universe. If he's reigning here, then this is the center of the universe.
Do you have any theories on where that is or no?
At the center of the universe. So, I mean, literally, I think it would be at this very center of our universe, wherever that is, because all things, as I've invoked this before, but this is probably a good way to end. What's my most fundamental Christology, my most fundamental theology is Colossians 1:15 through 17, speaking of Jesus, where it says, He is the image. There's a lot of statements here that are very important. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things consist.
Yeah.
The most elegant, in my estimation, the most elegant verses of the Bible describing who the Son of God is. That's my favorite verse in the Bible, because I get goosebumps every time I recite it. Think about all the things that are said in those couple of verses there.
Packed.
Okay? That is a Christocentric perspective of the universe. So he is at the center. Wherever the Son of God is, that is the center of the universe. But I believe there is a place right now. It is a physical place. It is a place where people eat and drink. It is a place where crops are sown and harvested. It is a place with physical buildings and perhaps megalithic structures. And it is a place where there is a kingdom, a functioning kingdom. That kingdom has an army. The king of that kingdom is called the Lord of armies. It is a place. It has locality. The universe was created for that king. This is his realm, the entire thing. There isn't a separate realm, that's why I don't subscribe to this idea that there's a separate dimensional realm where these things are. No, it's this universe. This is it. This is where it's at. And the king is here. And this is where things happen and take place. So it's a different perspective. It's a perspective that a lot of Christians are unfamiliar with, uncomfortable with. But know this, there's absolutely nothing unbiblical about that. So that's the difference in my mind. Is the kingdom of heaven transcendent to what we experience here? Yes. Yes. It is transcendent. But is it the same? Is it in the same universe? I would say yes. All indications are yes.
Transcended but not separate.
Yes. The children of Israel ate the grain of heaven in the wilderness, the sustenance of the angels. That's what the psalmist says. What do they eat? Manna. What was manna? Grain. Where did it come from? Heaven. Is that literal?
I need to go eat carbs. Same. I feel stupid.
You need to go eat some grain of heaven.
Now I have to go read a bunch of books.
Which is limbas, right? In the Chronicles, in Lord of the Rings. Bread of the elves, the bread that Galadriel gives the hobbits.
Yeah. Is it litmus bread or something?
Limbas.
Oh.
Well, let's see how accurate my lore is of the Lord of the Rings. All that studying in high school has to amount to something,
Limbus.
Right? Huh?
Limbus.
I did it. Wow. See?
One small
I did good in high
piece
school.
sustains a traveler for a whole day.
Yeah. That's manna, by the way. That's Tolkien.
Yeah.
Who are the angels in the Lord of the Rings? The elves.
Oh, man.
Who are the elves in relation to the human race in Lord of the Rings? They're elder siblings.
Oh, dear God. How did I miss that?
Who he calls the Eldar.
How did I miss that, dude?
You see, Tolkien is not, let me say definitively, and C.S. Lewis were not members of some occultic secret society. They were believers in Christ. And C.S. Lewis wrote the Chronicles of Narnia as an allegory. J.R.R. Tolkien didn't like allegories, hated them. So he wrote The Lord of the Rings, and what he's depicting is reality cast in a fantastical world, in a fantasy world, as he saw it. Okay? Two different guys who believed in Christ unequivocally, and who both of them wrote about the kingdom of heaven in two different ways. And everybody gets C.S. Lewis's, but nobody gets Tolkien's.
I'm really happy he said that because
You were a little sad from the Gary Wayne episodes.
One of the guys who's brilliant. You want to know our most hated piece of content? That's probably the most hated. Like, people are like, don't take C.S. Lewis away from me. I was like,
why should I? He declares the gospel of Christ accurately and with boldness.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. And so I don't care who his uncle was a Freemason or whatever. Who cares?
I don't have time to research it.
So the point is, you got to judge a person by what they say and what they do, not by extraneous connections that they may have, or people that they took a photo with, or friends that they have that were a Freemason. I'm friends with Randall Carlson. He's a 32nd degree Freemason. Does that make me a Freemason? Does that make everything here I've said today invalid? Does that invalidate everything I've said? No. Come on, let's not be dumb. But that's an illustration there of how the Inklings, how clever they were in their writing. One did the allegory, right, which is clearly an allegory of the gospel. The other did a different depiction of the kingdom of heaven, which wasn't necessarily an allegory. It was a fantastical depiction of the way that man viewed the kingdom.
You're doing it. We got to get you in town for an event.
Where?
We're just getting it. We have to get you in on an event schedule. When's your next conference? Are you doing one this year?
Oh, I've got a lot of things that I'm thinking of doing.
Let's do a big one in Nashville.
I already did that.
2026 though.
I'm willing to kick around any idea.
Do you have
I'm pretty sure I'm going to do an event in Bozeman. I'm not sure if it's going to be a conference.
Yeah.
It might be like a dinner.
Yeah.
And then where I talk and we sit around and smoke cigars around a fire and play horseshoes and have something like that.
That was a great group of people.
Yeah, because that was fun, wasn't it?
Was
you were at the conference I did in Bozeman and
so much fun.
And after maybe I shouldn't say this, but I will. After the evening after the conference ended, and then the evening, all of my guests, you guys, Congressman Burleson, and all the Mike Cernovich and all the different people who were like special guests would hang out at an Airbnb and we sit around a fire and smoke cigars.
Those are always the best times.
It's like, and I thought, I know everybody wants to do that. But screw the conference. Everybody wants to do that. And I'm like, okay, well, how can I create an event where everybody gets to do that?
It's a lot cheaper too, probably.
Yeah, well, it's a lot less work.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know everybody listening to this, right? Or a lot of people are like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Like, so I understand that. I'm thinking, how do I do that? Like, scale that up, give everybody that experience. Of course, you can't have 500 people doing that, but if you have a smaller group of people, then you can reproduce that experience.
Vet them well.
which,
How much?
Which is a lot of fun.
How much do I have to pay you to take me to Peru?
How much do I have to pay you
How
to
much
go
do I
with
have
me?
to pay you to go? I'm like, that would be so much fun.
Anybody? Yeah. I'm going. You want to go?
Yeah.
I'll tell you when I'm going.
Do you want to go?
That actually sounds like a lot of fun.
Like, let's go.
It does until you have malaria. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
You're not gonna.
Thanks.
You're probably not gonna get malaria if you
Dude,
go with me.
the last episode where you were talking about the fish that swims up.
Oh,
my
the carnero.
goodness. That
Yeah,
was not helpful.
The
I'm
vampire
never
catfish.
going-
The vampire catfish.
I'm never going to get in the river, but
I'm not worried about the catfish, the vampire catfish, so much as I am about the electric eels. But
okay.
God,
Yeah,
this would be dangerous.
and everybody,
together.
last time I was on your show and I talked about the electric eel, or one of the times, nobody believes me that the electric eel was that big. I'm like, are you serious? Have you researched how big those things get in the Amazon? So it was true. True stories.
Have you researched how big you were there?
Yeah, I did a little. I did
You were
there. I tried to cut one's head open with a machete, which was one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my life. So yeah, I've done a little bit of research.
Anyways, well, we'll end.
We could just
there.
ramble on all evening here.
Guys, go eat some food, I guess, and process, rethink your whole life.
Rethink your-
Pretty much what we're about to go do. So
enjoy Jesus. Thank you, Tim. You're the man.
Thank you
Appreciate
guys. Always a pleasure.
See you guys next week.